Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Ben Hansen, joined by Dan Tack. Yay, man, what's up? Jeff Margiafava.
Hello.
And JV Gwaltney.
Hey, guys.
What a wonderful panel. I'm happy to be back. Hats off to Andy McNamara for holding down the fort for 2 weeks. It was very fun to listen. I didn't expect it to be that entertaining.
He killed it.
The second the episode was posted, I downloaded it and then just laid in my bed and looked at the ceiling and listened to it. I had a great time. Hey, hell of a show this week, you guys.
Is it a big show?
It is what I would argue is a big show. It's a relatively big show. It's a solid 6 out of 10 on the size scale, but still fun stuff within it, right? So we're talking about Call of Duty World War II. Dan Tech, you reviewed it.
What a game.
Whoa.
Yeah, hot damn. Paris Games Week, which is a whole thing with Sony. They had a live stream on Monday. We're going to talk about some of those announcements. Some are more exciting than others, including Sucker Punch's new game, so we can talk about that. Jeffem, I want you here. I need you here because I want to talk about Hidden Agenda.
Sure.
And Sony's continued push into this bizarre PlayLink experiment, which I find fascinating.
Sure.
You?
Yeah, hey. Well, I'm here to talk about it.
I love you. JV, we have 1 minute set aside for Fire Emblem Warriors.
That sounds about right.
All right, fantastic. Then we have some great emails. Then back half of the show, it's basically a Game Club Light, talking about Super Mario Odyssey. We got a whole new batch of people in here that have been playing way too much of that lovable game and just diving in deep. So there aren't really spoilers. We talk about everything up until when the credits first roll, not even revealing the final kingdom or the kingdom that might be perhaps after the credits.
Whoa.
It's very light on spoilers. If you're the type of person that doesn't want to know any kingdom that exists up until when credits roll, then maybe don't listen, but otherwise I think you're totally fine. Hey, Dan, what has life at Game Informer been like this week?
It's been pretty chill. I'm just kind of getting ready for BlizzCon, you know?
That's right. BlizzCon's this weekend. What are you
That's right.
expecting?
Oh.
Is it going to be a big one?
It's always a big one if they have it, right? There's been years that they actually had it off, but now that they have more brands, like they have more to work with, there's not going to be any Diablo stuff, though. That's what I hear.
Yeah.
No Diablo. We can expect new stuff from all the other brands, I would say.
Yeah. Do you think there's going to be any tip of the cap to Bungie and Destiny 2? Are they going to acknowledge that being in the launch?
I have some questions to ask some people at that show about that whole integration, for sure.
Just trying to figure out how they feel about it?
Yeah, I'd love to get like a sense of how they feel about it outside of like, a PR statement, like we're excited to work with our partners, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Just like some off the cuff stuff, just really see how they feel about that whole, like, are they cool with it? Or, is Activision's heavy hand pressing down on them?
Yeah. I'd have to imagine like it's a weird mixture of emotions for a lot of old timers within Blizzard, because I bet they genuinely like playing Destiny and are happy that it's on
fits
PC.
really well with that wheelhouse of Blizzard games. Really, like, if you told me Blizzard made that game, I'd be like, yeah, okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to go over here and do this. But Dan, we're sorry to miss you because you're now not going to be involved with Extra Life 2017.
I know. I will be there like in a small way, but
a couple of small ways actually. Yeah.
As always, I love that. The year I did get to do it was one of the years that they didn't have a BlizzCon. And then that's how I got to do it. But I love that, and I hope everyone shows up for that because it's amazing. And you get to see me and JV play Yu-Gi-Oh! So
that is true.
That's a big deal.
On top of a lot of other fun surprises along the way, we're auctioning off some crazy things. Hopefully it's on the site by now. But just basics, right? Extra Life, we do it for charity every year. Gillette Children's Specialty Healthcare in St. Paul, Minnesota. Raise a lot of money. It's a lot of fun. It is a tight 25 hours. We are flying through a lot of different games, a lot of novelty things, Ghost Peppers, a couple other surprises, new ways to torture Game Informer editors this year.
There's some really sick stuff on deck this year.
It's effed up. Actually, now thinking about it, yeah, there is some genuinely effed up stuff. But that's coming up on Saturday. Was it November 4th? So starting at 8 a.m. Central, running for 25 hours. Jeffem and JV will be swinging by for some amount of time within that. Jeffem, have you ever visited during Extra Life?
Every time.
Exactly. And it's always just a thrill to have you. It changes the complete tone of the stream. But anyways, every half an hour, we're going to be auctioning off items. And it is just amazing. Like, I was piecing together just the big Excel spreadsheet of all the auction items and got a little choked up because it's just amazing how generous people in the industry are. Just shipping out some amazing items. For example, you can potentially auction. If you win the auction and donate this amount of money, then we'll ship you out an Xbox One. Signed by Todd Howard, a special Skyrim Xbox One.
If you could see it, you can go there.
It's amazing. Or like we have cells from Cuphead, like original drawings.
Oh, wow.
From
Okay, hang on. I'm tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a ton of just crazy over-the-top items. Let alone, do you want a new gaming PC and an Oculus Rift? Like, seriously, please tune in this Saturday. It's going to be on Game Informer's YouTube channel and Twitch channel. We have right now, I think the auction list, and this is just the bare bones we're going to be adding on top of it. We have like 60 items to auction off.
And these are big ticket stuff too. This
huge
and
things.
In previous years, we've had kind of little snack baskets and stuff like that. These are like, I've seen the stuff. It's nuts. Like we have really crazy stuff.
The bundles that we put together are absurd. It's no longer going to be like, we're auctioning off one game. Whoever donates to charity will ship you out this. Like, it is novelty stuff. So definitely tune in. But for now, Call of Duty World War II.
Call of Duty World War II. So we can talk about everything but the score right now. And if you want to see the score, you can come back and check that out later this evening.
Oh, what a tease.
Or you can try and guess what the score is from the way Dan talks about
You can actually do that. And this is I always find this a challenging game to review because it is 3 different games at this point in time. And has been for like the last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
So we got, campaign, multiplayer, and zombies. 3 very different entities in one package.
Which is the weakest? Which is the strongest?
The weakest for me was the campaign.
Interesting.
By a long shot.
Long shot.
Yeah, it was definitely the weakest part of the entire experience. But the multiplayer and the zombies were both excellent, so they pulled it up quite a bit.
Wow. Okay, I'm interested in the campaign,
yes.
so I'm sorry to start on the negative, but it seems like you were the complete flip last year with Infinite Warfare, where that campaign was like, wow, this is really ambitious, and people didn't really talk about it that much, I feel like. So what's the downfall of the campaign this year?
Okay, so we have it's World War II, right? So you're kind of within a historical confines in crafting your campaign, which is great, right? It should be accurate and, reverent and authentic. And, it is in shaping those battles and the context for those battles. However, the squad itself, it's ripped right from Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan, Platoon. That's basically your characters, all right? Those 3 movies together. Some of the scenes, I remember that scene from Platoon.
They're a studio that clearly love movies. Remember there for the Advanced Warfare cover, I remember they had Black Hawk Down playing on loop in the kitchen. We're here this time, they have Inglourious Bastards playing in the kitchen.
Right.
It's like that team loves movies maybe too much.
No, I think you can definitely see a clear, I don't want to say they're not ripping from it, but there's serious inspiration from those other works. And unfortunately, it doesn't resonate like those do. I love all those movies.
Sure.
I get into them pretty hard, but there's no emotional attachment to anyone in the squad. And the dialogue is kind of no, it just didn't do it. And then there's some, again, I can say whatever I want, but I don't want to get into spoilers if I may. There's some, it ends poorly. It ends poorly. Where I thought Infinite Warfare was very strong. The Allies of course win.
Jesus
That's a great ending. However, despite that, sure, okay, so maybe the characters aren't great, but there's also just a lot of Call of Duty kill boxes, right? Just go to one position, gun down 100 dudes, go to another position, gun down 100 dudes.
Really?
It starts to feel a little stale.
What did you think of the Advanced Warfare campaign, just to put studio versus studio here?
That's true. I thought it would... Narratively, I think it was a little better, but I think it suffered from a lot of the same flaws, except it had giant robots that you had to kill too.
Right.
Instead, those are now tanks.
And a real antagonist now.
Yes, and I think that's actually part of it, that we don't have a real antagonist in this, because you're fighting the Nazis, right? Which are clearly an awful.
Excuse me.
There's no person. There's no Kevin Spacey.
Right.
Well, that's God. In context, that's even worse. But never mind. Let's let that go.
So there's no, you're fighting Nazis.
You're obvious, right?
But you're not gunning down.
You don't have a face against the guy you're chasing after for the whole game,
right?
The bad guy, the Call of Duty bad man.
And so it seems like, at least from the cover story trip, the way they're trying to balance that out is by saying but there's kind of infighting within your little.
There is, and I thought the infighting was incredibly downplayed for what we were served up during the cover story trip.
Okay.
What's the most interesting way you get to kill a Nazi?
Great question.
Do you get a hatchet?
I don't want to spoil it. There is a great way that you kill a Nazi, and I want to talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
A little bit here, and that's in a mission that you do not fire a gun.
Okay.
So, although your squad may be kind of depressingly boring, the other characters that you do meet and interact with and play as in some situations are fantastic.
The French Resistance Lady.
Lady Rousseau is amazing, and the 2 British SOE agents, Vivian and Crowley, they are also amazing. They add a lot of flavor to the segments they're in.
That's Sony Online Entertainment, Jeff. Just in case you were confused.
Those are my favorite segments of the game, for sure, by far. And the one deception mission where you infiltrate a Nazi headquarters, as under the guise of being a Nazi officer is really fun.
And that's the no shooting level?
That's the no shooting level.
No German.
It's got that Inglourious Bastards kind of feel where you're deceptive and
trying not to speak Italian.
Right. And you never know what could go wrong, and you're exploring and learning. It's completely different than anything else in the game, and it sets itself apart as a cool set piece.
Yeah, that reminds me of the one in, what was it, Ghosts, where it's a heist where you basically don't shoot a gun until the very end.
They've done stuff like that before, but this one was really cool, I think, just because of that whole oh gosh, like you're surrounded by Nazis everywhere, and all of them want to examine your papers, and
Yeah,
you've got to remember where you're from and what you're doing. It's really interesting.
What I'm trying to figure out, is it disappointing just in terms of previous Call of Duty campaigns, or is it just overall not a worthwhile experience? Because I still want to play it just to have like a cool 2017 crazy budget World War II campaign.
It's not bad. I'm just saying it's okay.
Yeah.
It's in the okay realm, and that didn't do it for me in World War II style. It just didn't. It should. I just could not get with the characters. I wanted more emotional impact of the squad together fighting, and just like it didn't happen.
But like, okay, is it at least straightforward and understandable in a way that like Black Ops 3's terrible,
certainly coherent,
awful campaign that is just garbage?
Yeah, it's certainly coherent and certainly tells like an authentic tale of the squad moving through Europe during 44 to 45.
See, I'm kind of excited to play that because like obviously I love Wolfenstein 2, and that's just crazy and all over the place. So I'm kind of interested to play another World War II game fighting against Nazis in a straightforward Saving Private Ryan kind of game.
This is very much more like it's grounded, and again, a lot of stuff we'll talk about in the other segments of the game if we're going to get to those. Like certainly the gunplay is great. I'm so glad that I don't have to power slide or wall jump or any of that other stuff anymore. And you know, I loved that stuff when it was introduced in Advanced Warfare, their last game. Yeah. But I think after just 2 years of it, it's just like I want to stop worrying about coming up overhead on the top of guys and just enjoy the snap of a Garand just shooting, you know?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear that ting, the M1 like tinging at the end of the clip.
You know, it works. It really does call back to boots on the ground action. And it does work at that. It's great at that.
Yeah. So multiplayer itself.
Multiplayer is awesome. And for that, for some of the reasons I was just explaining, like forget having to worry about all that crazy speed. And more so than that, like more so than just going back to boots on the ground, they really did a great thing with class identity here with the division system. So like you can really identify with your character and the weapons and the abilities they get when you say, hey, I'm going to go mountain. So hey, you're a sniper. You get all kinds of sniper weapons, all kinds of sniper abilities. It's very thematically correct, but at the same time giving you the freedom of a loadout that Call of Duty is known for. So that was really cool. They did a great job with that, and it feels better paced. You know, just the
map design, or what are we talking here?
Not from map design, just the weapons I'd say are the best. Like I had so much fun with the Expeditionary, the incendiary shotgun shells. Like you load those puppies up, you just tag somebody, and they're going down.
Wow. What about the big Omaha Beach social area?
Great. Yeah, it's awesome.
Great.
It's awesome, and we actually saw some stuff we didn't see during the cover story.
Oh.
They have an R&R like card table. You go there and you can play like 20 different like old school Activision games. And I mean old, I mean like Atari.
Hang on, stop. There's a card table where you can go play Pitfall and
That's right.
How do they contextualize that?
It's the R&R table. So there's like dice and cards, where the soldiers would relax.
And then there's just like a CRT.
And you click on it, and it's just like, zoop, here's like 20 old school Activision games like Pitfall 2, Demon Attack. I remember that one from the 2600, man. I used to play that all the time. I think there's like 20 of them.
There was some, it was a Black Ops game, right? Where you could play some old Activision games. They've done that before. Okay.
They've put other games in their games. In fact, they often do that. Yeah. It's a thing. So
I heard all of Destiny 2 is actually playable at the R&R table.
I didn't see that there.
Main question from last time we talked about it on the podcast, where there's that room where it's kind of like a projection theater.
The theater.
And you could watch live streams and stuff.
It's still there.
How do they contextualize it? Is it black and white flickery, or is it just booting up
a
window?
On the screen. I didn't actually sit down to watch the thing in there because they weren't playing anything.
Because there's no live streams yet.
Right.
Okay.
But the theater is still there, and the hub, the social hub, I think it's very well done. Now, we have the loot boxes and supply crates. Obviously, everyone cares about loot boxes these days, me included. From what we played, it's all cosmetic, and I thought it was really well executed. It remains to be seen, is it going to stay cosmetic in the future, or are we going to get like... I would particularly hate it if they start introducing the Snoop Dogg weaponry into World War II context. That seems really not okay.
The message from the cover story, if you remember, it was a lot of like, day one, it'll be super authentic. And the fact that they would couch it so heavily with like, when we start, it's going to be cool and legitimate and authentic. It's going to get wacky.
And I can only talk about the cool and legitimate and authentic because that's what I saw.
Right.
And it seemed great. Like really cool pistol grips. That we talked about those, what they called them, the Sweetheart grips.
Okay.
Those are really cool. Like for the pistol, like the inlays. Those are really sweet. Really cool outfits. I don't call them outfits since they're uniforms. If we want to be correct. That's right.
Little costumes, Dantec calls them.
But whatever. They're really great, and the whole space is just really fun. I had fun just playing around in there. Like,
do you think this is one of those situations where playing at a review event amongst respectful journalists, it's like you're going to have a night and day experience compared to what people are going to have when the game actually launches? Do you worry about it?
I don't think so. We had a full HUD.
Okay,
so.
And no one was being a little running around screaming.
No, but that will happen certainly.
Of course.
In gameplay. Yeah.
So is that like the most interesting thing out of multiplayer? Is just that
it's definitely in a space that I don't see. You know, we talked about this when we were out there at the cover. Like, this is not something that's going to go away now that they've introduced it. This is a door that's opened, and I think it's going to carry forward. And I absolutely do think that now. It feels very integral. The lobby experience feels dead to me. It's just like, wow, how have we not done this before? Like, it's seamless. Like, you're in and out of multiplayer. It's like you're just right back to headquarters. You can queue up for another match immediately while you do headquarters activities. It's really nice.
And so when you walk through the door that says zombies are over here, how was your experience?
Now, zombies is a whole new entity.
My God.
And it's changed a lot since we played it for the cover story.
Oh, really? Okay.
Thankfully, that stage that we got killed on is much easier. And in fact, I will say this is the easiest zombies to get into. And I think I've said that every year.
Yeah.
It keeps getting more accessible, though. And this is definitely the most accessible of the zombies. But it still has, frankly, a somewhat sadistic streak in it for the puzzles and stuff. Like, man, there's some wild, crazy stuff.
Just like Destiny raid style nonsense?
Yeah. Like, just...
What?
I mean, yeah. It's...
You have to beat Pitfall 2.
Yeah, without going into too many spoilers. The zombies experience is... I think it's great because you get persistent progression, so you can take your mods with you and craft a character just how you want from one of the templates. Like, you've got offense, support, medic, and that's all new, which is great. Like, playing as a medic is great. You know, the zombies won't attack you, so you can get your friends up really easy. And support and offense. So whatever you want to do, there's a class for you, and then you adjust your loadout from there, which is really nice. And you'll unlock things as you play that carry over forever. Not just like the ability to unlock a piece of bubblegum that gives you to move once, like in some other zombies. So you're doing permanent progression. The puzzles are devious. So it's not just wave-based like previous zombies. Like, you're not just holding out until an X wave and you fight a boss. Now it uses wave and like discovery progression. So like...
Do people want puzzles from zombies? Like, I've never really gotten into the mode, but like, if I was getting a group of friends together and said, hey, let's play Call of Duty Zombies, I would not expect some cryptic puzzle solving experience.
Half the fun of zombies, and has been for a while, is just discovering those mysteries.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And it's a huge part of the experience now, and it's crazy what they've done in this one. Like, you know that big guy that we didn't kill?
Sure.
That killed us in the so like this one the big guy you kill, you take his head, right? And it works like a like a projector. You have to go like find like discarded paintings around the town and shine the eyes of the head on the painting, and like Indiana Jones style reveals hieroglyphics, and that's just the start of it, man.
We're going for a boots on the ground experience.
Well, not this.
I understand.
Nazi Zombies is all about exploring like the dark part of the Nazi occult fanaticism.
Were you ever scared?
They do some traditional jump scares that do get you.
Okay.
Not like... It is the scary zombies, because that's just mostly because it's like a pure zombie experience where we've had like relive the crazy 80s and film noir before that.
Yeah.
But I think everybody does great in their roles. David Tennant especially, I think. And
okay.
I really enjoy the zombie experience, although I think some of the puzzles are maybe too tough for a casual player, and you might have to look them up.
Of course. So overall, it's a good package, great package, solid package.
Very good package.
Okay.
Like I said, the campaign was the weak point for me.
Okay, not the strongest Call of Duty package ever, but nearing the middle to upper
Two
part
out of three is pretty good. And again, I didn't say the campaign wasn't terrible like Black Ops 3.
Sure.
Like, it wasn't an incoherent, rambling mess. It plays. You go through it fine, and at the end I was like, okay, you know.
Okay.
I didn't have I wanted more.
All right.
I wanted more, and I expected more, frankly.
Well, speaking of wanting more, Paris Games Week.
Mm-hmm.
No, it actually was more than I expected. I think like Reiner in particular in the office was running around like a chicken with his head cut off, talking about like, oh my God, Sony's really hyping this up. It might be crazy. It might be crazy.
And I thought that was BS.
I thought it was BS too, but it actually turned out to be a surprisingly strong show. What stood out for you guys?
Once we got past the VR games, at least.
Okay.
So like that was a straight up hour and a half of VR after VR.
But to be fair, that was our fault for watching the pre-show part of it.
It's true. They packed in a lot of
But
it.
they still claimed there were going to be tons of new game announcements during the pre-show.
They still had some stuff in there. Like they ended it announcing Spelunky 2, which I'm super excited. Right? Yeah, that's cool. That's one of my favorite games.
Because the teaser trailer they showed for Spelunky 2, which Jeff, you reviewed Spelunky. This is perfect. It was like showing like the main character with a baby. It was like a very cryptic thing. Do you think they're going to get really outside the box here?
No. I'm sure not. I'm sure that was just, hey, now you're playing as the new adventurer and the old adventurer was your dad.
Yeah, it's Spelunky Jr. Like that's totally what it's going to be.
What do you guys want from a sequel to Spelunky, which is one of the tightest games? Like, what the hell would you do?
Just more Easter eggs, like a different setting maybe. Just crazy stuff, because that game, it's at its most interesting when you've poured like hours upon hours into it and you're still finding secrets. Like you can go to hell in the original Spelunky and fight the devil, and it's just really interesting. There's also like a spaceship level. Like it's just, once you get past the initial like, okay, I got all my treasure and I got out of like, this tomb and I got through all the worlds, like that's when the game opens up. So I want more than just like, oh, here's another base game. Like I just want crazy, memorable stuff.
I just want to watch Jeff review Spelunky 2, because him trying to beat Spelunky 1 was one of the funniest things. You were so frustrated.
It's a frustrating game.
You were having such a tough time with that game.
It's a tough game.
You don't remember this?
That's not, it was a couple of years ago, and I guess I just have the nostalgia of after I was done with it and the enjoyment of it.
I think you're on like a tight review deadline. He's like, I can't do it! And you started trying to gouge your eyes out.
Like it's insanely hard. Like it's one of the hardest games I've ever played.
Oh, that's exciting. The weird thing though, what's the creator's name? Derek Yu?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. He's also making UFO 50, which is a game I'm very excited about, where it's a bunch of like NES inspired games bundled together, 50 of them in one package, and he's working with some other developers. So this was really a announcement out of left field.
Yeah, no.
He's also
no one expected Spelunky 2. Yeah. Like literally nobody.
Also Guacamelee 2. The PSVR stuff, it was pretty shocking. Like the most interesting game that I saw, I guess, was like, Q Games, the Pixel Junk guys, they're making a new game where you just feed hamburgers to zombies. But even that looks...
That was the most interesting one that you saw?
I think so. Did anything else stand out to you guys?
I can't remember who said it, but like someone on staff like categorized this as like, it looks like Sony just threw up like a bunch of VR asset collections up there, and I was like, good lord.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I take it back. They announced Rec Room.
Rec
coming to PSVR, and that's my favorite VR experience. So I guess there's something,
But yeah, it was like a nonstop barrage of shit I didn't care about.
Whoa.
I just didn't care.
That's kind of the sad thing. We do sound a bit like jackasses, because there are people who bought PSVR and they want games.
Yes,
and so, good for Sony to actually give them those games to play. But yeah, I'm in the same camp of just, I don't want VR.
Monster of the Deep is coming.
There we go. The Final Fantasy one.
Yeah,
Speaking of which, they announced or they showed a new trailer for episode Ignis, I think it is.
They did.
With a giant uppercutting an airship.
Yeah.
That was badass.
It looked like a crazy package for DLC, and they had like Mitsuda doing the soundtrack for it and really made a big deal out of that, which is fun to see them celebrate.
That is a cool thing. That is, I agree. That part is cool.
Yes, absolutely. Other than that, it seemed like the big star of the show was Sucker Punch's new game, Ghost of Tsushima.
Not what I expected from that studio at all.
Yeah.
That's a wild detour.
So it takes place in the 1200s, and Tsushima apparently is an island between Korea and Japan, and it's set during like the Mongol invasion. They had a behind the scenes video kind of buried in the live stream with like a little bit more info about the game. But the way they were talking about it in that video had me very excited, because they're not referencing Breath of the Wild specifically, but the way they were talking about it, about like there's no waypoint marker. It's all just you look out, see where you want to go, and go there and explore. And that sounds like an ideal open world game.
We'll see if they actually, how much that's actually delivered on. I saw that too, and I took it more as just like, hey, there are some secrets out there that you can stumble upon, but I don't know how tightly crafted of a campaign or story or whatever they're trying to do. But I just like the idea of them. It's kind of the same appeal of Assassin's Creed Origins, of like giving you this historical setting and hopefully creating a really interesting world that you don't really know much about, that you can go out and just kind of explore.
Yeah, I got into it because it looked like open world Tenchu.
Oh, interesting.
Like,
yeah.
I was like, yeah, they're bringing this back. And of course, it wasn't that. But, it sort of looks like that. And that's what I want.
It is weird just seeing that setting and realizing there haven't been too many games.
Yeah.
I mean, recently, For Honor kind of had a samurai vibe, and it was a good-looking game. But outside of that, like an open-world feudal Japan game, unless I'm missing something.
There aren't that many feudal Japan games.
There's plenty of feudal Japan games.
There's like Total War, right?
Just not like this one. Like you said, sure.
I bet the Assassin's Creed team is like, damn it, they got to it first. That's right there. It could have been such an exciting one.
Why didn't we do the thing fans have been asking for 15 years?
I told you, you idiot. No one wanted to go to London, for Christ's sake. But
I like London.
Yeah, Joe Juba wanted to go to London.
That's true. Something that kind of I'm a little worried about is in the behind-the-scenes video, they mentioned that one of the pillars is stealth.
All right, I'm out.
Really?
Yeah, I cannot stand stealth games, and I don't like stealth sequencing games. It's just not for me, and I know that. So, hey, if you like it, you like it. It's not for me.
I feel like if the tone and the vibe is strong enough, and I can hide in some grass and jump out as a samurai, like there's a world where they
using
can pull
a
it
bow
off.
and arrow. I'm sure if they're counting that kind of thing.
Well, if we're talking like Horizon, like light stealth, that's a different story. But
I bet that's going to be a huge reference for them is Horizon. Yeah, but it's fantastic to see Sucker Punch getting away from Infamous. As great as those games were and have been, it's always exciting to see new IP, especially this late in the generation.
Yeah, Horizon seems like a good analogy to me of just where Guerrilla was finally allowed to do something new, and it turned out to be really refreshing from them. I hope that it works out the same for Sucker Punch.
Yeah. And they've already been working on it, as they explained, because, Second Son came out years ago, so they said they've been working on it for like over 3 years, and so it might be closer to release than we think, but who the hell knows when it's actually coming out. Concrete Genie, JV.
Yeah, that looks really cool. It looks really cute. Now I want to play it.
It's the artsy-fartsy.
It's like a graffiti platformer.
Yeah.
Like I saw that and I wanted to play it immediately.
Yeah. And what about a game called Oure?
It's already out, right?
Yeah, we've been reviewing it. I just finished writing my review for it, actually, before we came
down. The tone
in
JV's voice says it's below an 8.
This is like flying around as a dragon, if you remember that game. They're like, hey, it's out now, everybody.
It is not good.
Wow, we're going. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
It cribs hard from Shadow of the Colossus because the basic setup is that you are a kid who's just sort of forced through this door by their parents, and they're like, save the world. Like, no pressure, mom and pops.
Okay.
You're capable of transforming into a dragon, and there are like 8 lighthouses in this sort of cloud open world, and it's very pretty at first.
Okay.
But everything looks the same. There's no environmental like diversity. You are literally just like clouds with some buildings.
So this explains like the no build up. Here's the game.
Oh, no, it gets better. So that half of the game is just wandering around this sort of free-form open world that just looks the same no matter wherever you go, collecting blue orbs that you can use to light up towers to call forth titans, which are basically colossi. Like, they're like the Shadow of the Colossus monsters.
Okay.
And so, you're getting amped up. You're like, okay, cool. I love Shadow of the Colossus. Like, this will be fun. So you start the second half of the game, which are these 8 boss battles. And essentially, like, they're half sort of like gripping on to these monsters while also solving line puzzles. And it's not good because the control scheme is absolutely abysmal. Like your dragon is very floaty. He can't do like sharp turns, and you can't like brake. Like there is no way to brake. He's constantly moving. So if you want to hover in a spot, you have to constantly be like using the thumb stick.
Right.
And it's super frustrating because there are parts where you have to stay in one place. And it gets pretty hectic, and it's just not fun. Like, none of the puzzles are fun. The collecting stuff is boring. The story is just, it's sort of that sort of fantasy story you've heard a bunch of times. Like, if you've, like, watched The Never-Ending Story, yeah. It's also super buggy. I had the game, like, crash several times, and the dragon would get glitched.
So it looks beautiful for a minute in a trailer during Paris Games Week.
It is the perfect trailer game.
Okay. All right. Maybe pass on that.
Yeah.
Speaking of maybe pass on, there was a weird phenomenon in the office when they debuted the last trailer to close out the live stream. And I feel like everyone in the office was on the bubble of, is this Days Gone or is this Last of Us Part 2? And it was brutal. A couple people emailed in asking for our thoughts just on how brutal this trailer was. It was just a cutscene from ultimately what turned out to be Last of Us Part 2. No recognizable characters as far as I could tell. Introducing a lot of new cast members. A big scene with a hammer being taken to an arm.
Clipping wings.
Yep.
What did you guys think of that?
Right, I'd like to weigh in since there's been a lot of talk about this. And like, yes, the trailer disturbed and bothered me.
Yes.
But I think that could be a good thing. I don't think every trailer is supposed to like make me happy. It made me really disturbed, and it really conveyed the dark world that is The Last of Us. The Last of Us is not a party. The Last of Us is an awful place. It is the bottom depths of humanity, and it makes complete sense for this to happen contextually to me with this apparent religious cult that has been created in the wake of
contextually within the game. It'll be interesting to see as just like a beacon of this is what the tone of the game is going to be like. But to have that be the trailer, I just feel like they were wanting it to be this crazy impactful moment, and like I don't think anybody was more interested in Last of Us Part 2, which is ultimately the point of a trailer from that gruesome scene.
Yeah. And I already knew what the tone of The Last of Us world was. I already knew it was dark, and this didn't. It just seemed like violence for violence sake. There was no context to any of these characters or what was going on. Yeah, someone got captured by these people, and then they got tortured, and then they killed them, and then they got away.
They hinted, or they didn't hint. They announced like the voice cast, like Laura Bailey as the main woman who gets her arm beaten in and whatnot. And there was a lot of speculation, but like, oh, is Ellie's mom? Like, is that the connection here? What ultimately is happening? So maybe speculation on that level, but you could have gotten that from not someone getting the crap beaten out of them.
Yeah, my problem with it wasn't the violence. Like, I typically don't have a problem with intense violence. Like a example people have brought up is like, oh, the original trailer for The Last of Us, back in 2011, 2012, where they revealed the game was, super violent. And,
that was the one where it ends with them like running.
It ends with a shotgun to the face.
Yeah, shotgun to the face.
Right, okay.
And, I can kind of understand that argument, but my problem with that comparison is that there are so many tropes that happen in the original trailer that it does such a good idea, or it does such a good job of setting up this universe, going like, okay, we're drawing parallels to like The Road, or like, sort of Fallout stuff. Like you can, it does a good job of establishing this universe. This, as opposed to like a trailer, like, okay, we're marketing this game, we're getting people hyped up for it. My biggest issue was it felt like, honestly, just a random ass scene that they like stuck up there and played from the game, and it didn't get me interested. It kind of repulsed me. Like,
same here. And the only reason it's not random is because I'm sure the thought was like, oh, this is so striking, it's really going to have an impact on people. When the only impact is not like, oh, this looks intriguing, this looks like an interesting story. The impact is just, I don't want to see this on a screen. I want to see someone's arm get broken by a hammer.
Yeah, to be clear, I'm a gorehound, so I like the shotgun to the face in the original one. I loved. Like,
I don't think that was the original. I think that was the second.
Or the second one. The actual gameplay one.
Right.
Like, I love the violence in The Last of Us. I love like how gritty that combat is. I think it's actually one of the more interesting displays of violence. Like, I really like it, how gruesome it is. This one, it did feel like torture porn. Like on there with like Hostel and Saw. And, I don't necessarily mind that, but there's got to be context for it. And this just doesn't work for me as a trailer. But I do think it's interesting that they took the, all bad publicity is still publicity sort of angle. Like, that is clearly in the response that they've had to this, where it's like, they've sort of deflected it. They've said like, oh, well, this is part of the universe, and we're showing off like noteworthy details here. And like, I do not think that I got anything else out of that trailer that I did not already know about The Last of Us.
Right. I think just the fact that we're talking about it right now on this podcast makes it a successful trailer. Think of the other trailers we could be talking about. But
when we're talking about it in a tone of like,
I get it. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And Joel could have come out and taken a poop in the middle of the road, and we'd be talking about it.
And we would be.
So I guess that's successful.
Come here, giraffe.
Yeah. But I kind of want to talk about the other trailer that people were mad about, because I think honestly that one was more interesting. Was the Detroit one?
Oh, here we go.
Where people, I think it was Meg Janeth, who wrote the 80 Days, had this really good take on it, because the trailer, if you haven't seen it, it's another, what is the game called? Become Human. Detroit Become Human.
Yep. Jeff Cork, for the record, deep cut here, but he called it Detroit Become Sid Schumann, who was the Sony guy hosting the stream. Anyways, go on. Anyway.
But basically, it shows off a domestic violence sort of situation with a father abusing his daughter, and then the main character, or one of the characters that you're playing in this game, in this sequence, is an android servant.
Yeah.
And
Kara from the old Tech
Demo. Kara. And so it does the David Cage trailer thing, where it shows you the breakdown of all the ways that you can interact with this scenario, whether you're like, you can kill the dad, you can save the daughter, help her sneak out, or do nothing, and that sort of thing. But anyway, Meg Janeth, I think I'm pronouncing her last name right, hopefully, if you're listening, sorry, who wrote 80 Days, had a really good take on it, where it was like the idea of having this, of like packaging domestic violence as sort of a choose your own adventure thing, like, is super f***ed up.
Yeah.
Like, is that gamified? Like, I don't like the idea of saying, oh, something can't be gamified, but I don't know if I trust David Cage to do it.
I think that's ultimately where everyone's coming from.
I think that's definitely where I'm coming from. Like, I'm sure that's a topic that you can definitely approach in the gaming medium.
Sure.
But I have zero faith in that game at this point.
Well, doesn't Wolfenstein tackle that to some extent?
Yeah, but it's one of those things. Like, obviously, I love Wolfenstein 2 to death. It's one of my favorite games in years. But I don't feel like I'm the kind of critic who can come out and say, because I've never experienced domestic abuse or violence, that can say, well, that is a skillful way of doing it. Like, I think it is, but I do not speak to that from like an authoritative position.
But you can at least say this feels honest.
Right, like I can look at the
extent.
David Cage one, and I get that it's a trailer, but I can go like, the writing here is really bad. Like that dude is just saying a bunch of cliches that you've seen in a bunch of other like domestic abuse fiction scenarios. Whereas the one in Wolfenstein 2, we're not going to go too much into that because of spoilers, but it bothered me and repulsed me in ways that I didn't expect. And it also had a payoff later on, but that's hard to say with this since it's a trailer. But I don't trust David Cage, basically.
Yeah. There's also a Spider-Man trailer. It was just more repeat. Anyways, but the thing that was weird about Detroit Become Human is, especially after playing Hidden Agenda and kind of keeping my eye on this PlayLink initiative, it's bizarre to me that Detroit Become Human doesn't have some PlayLink component. And PlayLink from Sony, that's the whole thing where you can download an app and play on your phone, and if you're playing with a group, you can vote and make choices along the way. Mm-hmm. When the entire hook of your game, at least as far as we can tell with Detroit, is, hey, make these choices, it seems tailor-made for that experience. So it's bizarre that an internal Sony studio could reject or not incorporate, as of yet, this PlayLink initiative.
I don't know if we all want to be voting on our PlayLink how to handle the child abuse scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, well, that's just one part of the game, right?
I know, but I'm just saying,
when your entire game boils down to press triangle or square. Like,
conceptually, though, Detroit is supposed to be a heavy story, right? That will weigh on your soul.
That is both political and apolitical at the same time.
Conceptually, right? I can get it. That's supposed to be a piece that's supposed to be, more personal to the user, have a dialogue, have a conversation. Again, this will never happen, but that's the theory, right? Like, I get that. For the PlayLink thing is more like, Jackbox, let's do this crazy thing. Let's watch this stupid, let's just watch this cheerleader get chopped up by going in that room. You know what I'm talking about? It's
wait. So your example of a lighthearted thing is watching a cheerleader get chopped up?
It's a difference between popcorn munching entertainment and something that's supposed to speak.
Have
to
you
the
ever
soul.
been over to Dan's house?
No, he won't invite me.
You're
for
invited.
The love of Christ.
You're invited. Come on down.
How many cheerleaders are up there?
You can go, but you have to wear your cheerleader costume.
Yeah. Well, Hidden Agenda is an effed up story. It's a story of a serial killer. They're very much going for a Silence of the Lambs type experience.
Kinda, yeah. It's
not as popcorn as Until Dawn,
but
which
it's
is
still
the developer's previous game.
Sure,
but it's still like a thriller.
Which is
like,
what I was referencing.
It's a
with
mystery
the
thriller
Yeah,
kind of thing. Yeah.
Did you enjoy your time with Hidden Agenda?
I did. I went into it with mixed expectations, in part just because I really liked Until Dawn so much. And it definitely doesn't live up to that, which it would be impossible to, because it's meant as this one sitting, 2-hour experience.
Yeah.
And that's great if you want to play it with friends, which is supposed to be a big draw of it. But ultimately, and they do a pretty good job with the story, but ultimately you're just not going to be invested with these characters in the way that you would want from a story-driven game.
Plus, Until Dawn, it seems like it had the real thrill of playing with the group, was making those decisions and choices, and then watching characters live or die, where it seems like the big branching points within Hidden Agenda, it was never like a good moment of like, oh man, this is so crazy, or like, oh, these characters are dropping like flies. It's just kind of like, do you want to say F you, or do you want to say, I'm going to walk out of the room now?
Yeah, there are a few moments in there which are bigger, but a lot of it, it's a lot more psychological and your relationships with characters.
Yeah.
It's kind of the idea of the hidden agenda, and also among the characters is, do you trust these characters? Do they trust you? And your decisions are kind of influencing those things, as opposed to, here's a killer. He's going to kill everyone. What are you going to do?
Yeah. The most fun part of the experience, I thought, is they have certain like QTE moments where it's like, oh, tap on this piece of garbage before they trip over it, and then you'll get a special takedown, which is I think takeover. I'm sorry. Or they have scenes where it's like, okay, hunt for clues, and then it's just like locking in on a screen, and everyone's just tapping on their phone, searching around the screen, trying to find where any potential clues are hidden. It's a very stupid gamey moment, but it is fun then when you get those takeovers, because everyone will have a different amount of those banked based on how well they've done in those different activities. So then when there's like a big decision coming up, you can just spam the takeover and be like, all right, guys, I'm running this show.
Yep.
Get this lady out of here. She's no good. That was really the thrill. But overall, on a technical level, it's like just like that problem with That's You. We talked about it on the podcast a while back, kind of their Sony's attempt at a Jackbox style experience, but it's not great. Like, I went through 60% of my battery because you have to leave your phone on the entire time. You have to have it connected to the same Wi-Fi as the PlayStation 4. You have to download a completely separate app for each individual game.
What?
Yeah. It's also really choppy, like when you're actually rubbing over the screen on your phone. Like the cursor is just all over the place on the actual screen.
I didn't have too many problems with that, yes. But, and it's frustrating because when the first time I played it, I was at home and everything connected fine instantly, and I was like, oh, this is actually really good. And then I played it in the office with Miller and Serial, and it took us like 20 minutes to, everyone figure out the network and all that kind of stuff. But yes, the battery, I think, is going to be an issue for anyone who plays it. And I had to, when I was playing at home, I had to actually plug in my phone because, your screen is up the entire time, and smartphones can't handle, doing that for 2.5 hours or whatever.
Yeah, and they have like breaks. I don't know if they say charge your phone, but they really should. Like, it's like end of part 1. Hey, everybody, go mix a drink, have a good time. They should have thrown in a comment of like, this is when you go charge your phone or find
go figure
a
out where your charger is because you're gonna have to plug it in.
Exactly. Yeah. Overall, it was a fine little experience. I felt like the story. I'm curious how much it branches, but I wasn't too satisfied. And there are a lot of dangling threads where it's like, wait, what was that?
Yeah,
what was that?
that was one of the things that was most interesting to me because I played it twice on my own, and the experiences just couldn't have been more different in terms of. Yeah, I screwed the pooch so bad on my first playthrough. Like,
did you get to take over and choose the screw the pooch option?
Yes.
Okay. What happened?
No, everything that could have gone, like the killer went free. My character got into a ton of, like hot water, and a civilian ended up dying, and it was madness. And the funny thing is, I was trying to play really conservatively and not do anything that, you'd think like, oh, I'm not letting that guy go. That's just the stupidest thing. And I think it kind of wants you to take more of a, thriller, like we're going to take some risks, like you would see in a thriller movie during it.
Yeah.
And so when I did that the next time, I was surprised by how much actually changed, and so that was cool.
I still often think about the ending of Until Dawn. I think it's one of the boldest gaming design decisions in years. Is the choice that you can still massively fuck up on one choice at the very end and literally kill everyone except for one person.
Oh my God.
And I still go back and forth on that. It's is that good? After 12 hours of trying to save everyone, I can just lose everyone in that one instance, not knowing.
Yeah.
And not knowing, is there context in any way, or is it just 50-50?
Oh, no, it's it's just a 50-50 choice.
Oh, F that.
Yeah, it's
that's great.
I think ultimately I come out on the side of liking it.
Yeah, it's bold.
Yeah. I would say in that situation, and we're talking more about Until Dawn than we are Hidden Agenda at this point, which is actually apt. But I had a sense of what was going to happen based on that decision, and so I did it the right way.
Nicely
and so I'm
done.
really happy with how that one ended. But yeah, I can see.
I'm just really fascinated by that developer too, Supermassive Games, because they did it Until Dawn, which took them 4 or 5 years. That started out as a PlayStation 3 move title.
That's right.
And then they brought that game out, and I'm still convinced Sony just sent that game out to die. In the fall, they didn't really do anything with it marketing wise, and then
I'm always confused. What do you want? If you don't see an ad on YouTube,
but there wasn't any ads anywhere. It was just oh, it's out now.
What, are you searching the internet for Until Dawn?
No,
ads?
but
I just don't know if a game exists unless I see an ad in Game Informer.
But anyway, okay, so they've got sort of Hidden Agenda, which is a mini version of Until Dawn. We call it that, and then they have a bunch of VR titles that are out or coming out. And I'm just curious, how that company is doing, because we interviewed them a while ago. And one of the questions I asked them was well, how did Until Dawn do sales-wise? and like a PR person immediately swooped in and was like, "We're not talking about this." So I'm just curious, like, did that game do well for them, and is this one doing well for them? And it's like, is that more of the kind of game we're going to see from them, or is it just going to be like more VR stuff or like different kinds of games?
It seems like they're splitting up and trying a bunch of different things with different VR titles and hidden agenda, so they're trying to cover a lot of new experimental ground, which is always fun for a studio to see. I'm more excited about the PlayLink stuff than the VR stuff. But yeah, here's hoping they keep to
being weird. I want to see more weird shit from them. Like, I really do.
Yeah. Well, what is the VR stuff? That's like
there's just one really generic looking one called like Bravo Team 6.
That's it. Yeah.
That looks like Counter-Strike but in VR. And then there's the Inpatient, which is an Until Dawn tie-in somehow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And is that devoid of any gimmicks?
I have no idea.
Gimmicks, I mean VR or PlayLink?
No, it's VR.
It is VR.
It is VR, but that's all I know about it. It's like, I think it's like a prequel.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
It takes place in the asylum that's in Until Dawn. Spoilers.
I'm really curious about the future of PlayLink in general. At Paris Games Week, they announced Erica, which is a live action, and like the cursor looks like this weird ghost looking wispy type thing. And so I think that's a cool avenue, is just to have live action choices for PlayLink and have the group making decisions. Hopefully a shorter experience so your battery doesn't get too drained. But also, I'm curious. Like, I know Netflix is experimenting with interactive stuff for kids.
Yeah.
But I don't, as far as I can tell, they haven't made like an adult-focused interactive experience. But that's got to be coming in the next year.
It's on their radar hard.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope they really nail it.
The concept of like interactive movies is actually coming back again. Like the crazy thing where like that's one of the gimmicks they're going to try to get us back to the theaters. Like, click A and find out what happens if they make this choice. Like the movie will change, diverge based on that choice.
So horrible.
I know it's like it's like a '50s gimmick, right? Like,
they did that. What was it, in the '80s or something? And then there's that
it's
weird.
happened a few times.
Yeah.
Like we've had it. It's happened historically in history.
But to be fair, we are not the audience for that. Like, I don't think gamers are necessarily like hardcore gamers are necessarily the audience for that. I think there are people who will be taken by that gimmick and who will love it. Like, you just come home and it's one of those Netflix and chill nights.
I wouldn't mind if it was Netflix.
This is specifically a theater experience.
Oh yeah, no, I thought we were talking about like on screen. Like,
the on screen is going to be really easy. The theater stuff is like to try to get people back from away from Netflix and back. to the movies.
The theaters are doomed.
Yeah, that'd be rough. That's it for Hidden Agenda. JV, Fire Emblem Warriors.
It's Dynasty Warriors with Fire Emblem characters.
Are there romance options?
No.
You can't romance hordes of Mongols?
No. There's like a bunch of horny jokes for the Tumblr fans.
Okay.
But that's it. There's straight up like there's like several sex jokes, and that's like
what score did you give this?
Like a 7.5.
That's a solid score.
No, it is.
That's above average, actually.
Mindless fun, and I played a lot on my Switch, but like it's Dynasty Warrior with Fire Emblem characters. That's what it is.
Classic. Is it like running the full sweep, like Marth? Everybody's in there.
There are some characters from the classic series like Marth, but like Ike's missing, so I'm sure he'll come along later as DLC. But on the whole, like it's definitely geared towards more of like Awakening and Fate's characters.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's fun. It's good, mindless fun. If you want to just have something on your Switch to like kill hundreds of literally thousands of soldiers every stage, just a good button masher. There you go.
Dan continues to be perplexed by JV's definition of fun.
I know, right?
I had fun with it. It's good, mindless fun.
Okay, I guess it's good.
It came out strong bagging on it, and then you're like, it's fun.
But like it's
an easy definition of what it is.
Yeah.
There we go. Do you guys want to move on to some great emails?
Let's do it.
Sure.
And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. We have some great emails that people sent into podcast at GameInformer.com. We're going to read through the cream of the crop, choose our absolute favorite, and then ship that person out something really nice. So I need you guys at home and you guys in the room, in the lovely little room in Minnesota here, to remember each and every email sent in.
Crap.
And we're going to choose our favorite.
All right.
Ready? Here we go. First email sent to podcast at GameInformer.com. This is Prince from Idaho. He says, hello, GI crew. While watching season 2 of Stranger Things, I noticed something. My man JV looks like Jonathan.
God damn it.
I noticed a lot of things watching season 2.
God damn it.
Have you gotten a whole new wave of people saying you look like that dude? Now season 2
it's...
he's off the show now or whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Charlie Heaton got caught with cocaine on him. Him.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It happens. Okay. I shouldn't have been sniffing cocaine. It's fine.
Yeah, we got to dial that back a bit.
How often does this come up in your life?
All the time. Literally.
Not cocaine, but this reference.
He gets like at least a tweet a day. I
Oh
always
yeah. For like the past 3 months, it's been like once a day.
Well, it's your fault for looking so much like
I
that.
know.
Yeah,
like,
what is-
yeah.
Fix your face. Victor
It's really
Pham
hard.
writes in.
That
and
was the
says,
whole email?
Yep.
That's my favorite. Let's do that one.
Victor Pham writes in and says, what kind of process do you use to filter emails or emails that don't get read on the show, save for a later time? I feel like we've answered this before, but it's worth answering. I go through, choose some of the favorites. If it's like, if I know that next week we're going to have an editor on and there's a question that's tailor-made for them, then I'll save it that way. But I read through every email. So don't think that just because you write in on a Thursday when the podcast is airing that you missed the window and it won't be in consideration. So everything gets in there. Stuff like this email from Vincent Baker. He says, Dear Game Informer, I can't stop thinking about a few weeks ago when a listener asked if it was weird to listen to you to the podcast while not having played the games you cover. You all seem pretty dismissive of this idea, but I haven't played a single new game since Final Fantasy 15. And before that, I can't even remember the newest video game I played. I think it's Mortal Kombat X. My point being, I'm sure you have many listeners that don't keep up playing with all the games you do. Yeah, I'm sure that's the case.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Did you guys dismiss
I don't
listening
remember
without
this
playing those
specifically.
games?
Yeah, I don't
There's
know
not
if
a-
people
Yeah, I don't
I
remember
don't know if there's
doing
anything
that.
wrong with that.
It feels like we're designed specifically for
In the Lab by
people-
David Cage.
for people who haven't played the games yet, because we try and be very conscientious about spoilers and
Yeah,
stuff and kind of give our overall impressions.
And
so-
like the last generation, I didn't get into it for like a year or two because I really got into gaming podcasts at that time, and I felt so caught up relatively on like the progress of the industry and overall games. I'm like, why would I ever need to buy one of these consoles and play BioShock? I listened to 5 hours of people discussing BioShock. Turns
that's
out that
just
was the wrong
crazy.
call,
Yeah.
but we appreciate people who listen but don't necessarily play everything. Beaten Down Brian from Ireland, glorious Ireland. He says, hey, Ben and crew, I hope everyone is happy and well. Is that the case?
Sure.
Great. He said, there's something needs to be put to bed. A few weeks ago on the podcast, you were talking about how nobody has beaten Persona 5. Well, I'm here to tell you that even though I have almost 1,000 hours sunk into the game, I still have not finished it.
No.
I'm not even convinced it does end honestly, he says. Yeah, thank you.
1,000 hours.
The theory is going strong that not a single human being on planet Earth has seen the credits roll in Persona 5. Dan, have you?
No, I've
Case stands!
I've
Case
said that.
stands!
I've
you
said
go.
that.
Here we go. Dustin Wilson says, hey, GI crew, with all the talk last week about microtransactions and developers having trouble recouping costs, I think this was 2 weeks ago, why aren't more AAA developers working to create cheaper games? Now there's the
Because
question.
they have big studios, lots of people that need to do things. I mean,
Okay, well, look at Supermassive
what-
as an interesting example, right? They're making a series of smaller, cheaper games.
And what you do see is like, especially in the last decade or so, even more so in the last 5 years, you see break-offs from the big companies to go and do their own little independent projects that either Kickstart or Steam or like lots
Separately,
of
not like internal still.
right, separately.
Yeah.
Like they're little satellites. They like take a few friends and like, hey, we want to go make this game. Let's go do it.
Or even internally with Ubisoft was big on this before with like Valiant Hearts or Child
Sure.
of Light. Certainly a lot
But
of people have experimented with it.
that's not what gamers want from the big AAA companies.
Right. Well, I think an interesting example for Dustin here from Madison, Wisconsin is Uncharted Lost Legacy. That's a game they turned around in a year,
Yeah.
and it's crazy, and they sold
But was
it
it
as a
not
cheaper
still
experience.
super expensive?
Oh, I'm sure it was expensive as all hell, but
Yeah.
compared to like a big new Uncharted, it was very much
Yeah.
made on the cheap, I'd have to imagine.
All right.
But as far as why they don't do it, yeah, it'd be cool if more people made those $30 titles and stuff, but that's...
Is he talking about cheaper as in you can buy them for cheaper, or
I heard-
cheaper
no,
that
I think
they can
development
Budget.
cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to solve the microtransaction problem in the industry because it's always that
Yeah.
issue of $1 million is cool, but $1 billion is
right.
cooler.
The microtransaction thing isn't even linked to that. It's not. You're never gonna. You try telling a suit that he's, we can make more money, but we don't want to,
Yeah,
because you're like, oh really?
right.
Well, let's do this thing to make more money. It's always about making more money.
That's Dan's motto.
I'm not speaking for myself. I play video games. Okay.
Hey, brother. P.S. Dustin Wilson says, hey, by the way, can you ask Dan Tack what he dressed up for at Halloween?
I did not dress up for Halloween.
Not a single outfit.
You went as Dan Tack.
I went as Dan Tech,
Well, you'll
It's
get to
horrifying
see
enough.
which is actually really bizarre. I think it's the first time I haven't dressed up in like many years.
what happened. What changed?
I was just tired, to be honest.
Really?
I was enjoying a day that I didn't have to do anything.
I'll be damned. If you want to see Dan Tack in a costume of sorts, you can tune in Extra Life. This Saturday, there will be a video clip with Dan.
There is a video, and it's really crazy. You're gonna love it.
It's very silly. James Goings says, hey, GI Crew, I was neither alive nor a gamer. You can just stop with alive, I believe. When Mario 64 or Ocarina of Time released, but I've since played through them and have a decent understanding of how important they are. How comparable would you say the release of Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild are in terms of quality and impact compared to those 64 launches?
I'm going to say very different. Just because back then we have like so many games to pick from today. It wasn't that the scene was different back then, right?
Well, it's also think of the leap where they're coming from. I mean, this was the first really well done 3D game, and even Ocarina of Time Z targeting was a big milestone for the industry. Whereas the games this year from Nintendo have been absolutely amazing, but it's not like, well, maybe Breath of the Wild is like, oh, this is a game changer.
They're not the same kind of leaps, I don't think. They're still great and amazing. I haven't played them, but everyone says they're great, and I believe them.
What's your problem? Why aren't you playing these games?
I don't have a Switch.
Why don't you buy one?
I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy it for those games, by the way, but I'm getting it because the new...
SMT?
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, well, that's the reason I'm getting one.
Really?
Yeah.
But really, why haven't you bought one yet? I mean, you, in theory, would love to play a new Zelda.
In theory. Yeah, I actually would like to play the new Zelda, more than the Mario even.
Really?
Yeah. I haven't liked Mario since, since, I don't know, Yoshi's Island, probably.
Same.
I know. They sell Switch
Everyone
in stores.
tells me. They do?
Yes.
I'll have to go check that out.
An amazing experience this year.
All right. I'll get one.
Okay.
Right.
Back off.
I will say though that it's comparable. The Zeldas are comparable to me, at least in the sense that I got the same sort of childlike wonder from playing both of them. Holy shit, I am totally in this world. This is incredible. I just want to spend so much time here. So I do think they're comparable, maybe not in technological advances or influence over the industry, but to me it's the same. It's approximately the same experience. Yeah. But to say that it feels incredibly bold and just immersive.
And I would say that in terms of people losing their mind, the two Zeldas are probably pretty close in terms of how nuts people have been going for Breath of the Wild. But I would say that Mario and Mario 64, there's a much bigger gap in there.
Absolutely. One was a crazy pioneer. Are you going to play Breath of the Wild, Jeff?
I am. I actually took a Switch from the office, and I have it at home right now. I haven't started it yet.
5-finger discount.
Yep.
Pretty cool. Noah Niahe says, "Hey, GI crew. My name is Noah. I'm from New Paris, Pennsylvania." New Paris. That's great. My hometown is New London, so I feel a real bond with this person.
Good stuff.
I've got a question for y'all. What are your true feelings on Majora's Mask as a core Zelda title? For me, it always felt every bit the equal of Ocarina. Yeah, it's a core Zelda title.
I thought it was better than Ocarina.
Is there an argument that it's not a core Zelda title?
I've never heard it.
Yeah, I've never heard that
I don't
either.
trust them. Maybe Giant Bomb, they're big on that. Yeah. Also, on a totally unrelated topic, I think it'd be fun and awesome if you guys did a random game club offshoot for movies. A movie club, if you will.
Yeah, I think we should definitely do that.
And I'm immediately putting in my vote for Final Fantasy Spirits Within.
God damn it.
Yes.
I'm in.
It's a great
I'm
choice.
in. Let's do it.
Not for that movie.
We were talking
We're
about
going to strap you down.
Because for movies, the temptation is to make it like a commentary track.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of fun, but more of a setup. I don't know if enough people would listen to it in that correct way. But it's still, even if you're not watching the movie, I think it's still fun to listen to commentary tracks. I'm a dork like that. We talked about doing that during the Final Fantasy 15.
We did. For the Final
story.
Fantasy 15 movie, right?
Well, I want to do every Final Fantasy movie. I think there's enough
God,
weird
what is wrong
stuff.
with you?
There's the old one based on Final Fantasy 3. There's this weird old animated Final Fantasy movie we could watch, and then we could watch
I'd watch that
Children,
Okay.
Spirits Within.
Then we can start
fun
passing
stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We actually did do that for the Super Mario Brothers movie.
That's right. There's a commentary track on Game Informer's site. Yeah, good.
Which
numbers.
is an incredible movie.
What a weird one.
Yeah, I'd rather
Tom,
watch that than the Final Fantasies.
do you like any of the Final Fantasy movies?
No, and I've seen them except for that, with the exception of that animated one that you were talking about. I haven't heard of that one.
God, I wish I could remember the name of it. I'll find it for you after the show. Tom from Hungary says, "Hey crew, my question is simple. Have you ever got lost in a game that you wandered for hours and couldn't find the solution to a puzzle and turns out to be not a puzzle at all and you just couldn't find out the right way to go?"
That has happened to me.
Sure, but I feel like
I'm drawing a blank of which game.
Yeah.
The one that stumped me the most, and why this stood out to me, is Final Fantasy VIII. Back in the day, playing it, remember there was a part where you get the car for the first time. 15 wasn't the first Final Fantasy with a car, everybody. So in 8, you get the car and it's exciting, but there's gas. And so you can run out of gas. And so I just dished it in the desert. I'm like, whatever. And then I tried progressing in the story, and it was just like a gate that was guarded. And the guys were like, "We can't let you in." I was like, what? And I was just completely stuck. And every walkthrough that I would look up online, it would say, "Go into the gate, and the guards will let you through." And I was like, this does not make sense. Here's what a weirdo I was. This is, when did 8 come out? 98, 99?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, none of my friends know. Every walkthrough cannot help me in the situation. So I went on ICQ, my favorite chat platform of the day, and searched for people that had the name Squall Leonhart and Cypher, and like found like Final Fantasy 8 characters, people that named themselves after it, that would know the game better than anybody in the world, and then message them and say, here's where I am stuck. Can you please help me?
That is so
And
bizarre.
eventually got through. Turns out you needed to have gas in the car and drive that through the gateway.
I actually just had I recalled a situation while you were talking. Phantasy Star 4, you get to this area with ice, right? And you can't get to the next area until you unlock this tomb. But you can't unlock the tomb until you talk to a barkeeper and then say no 3 times. He's like, do you want to know about this? You have to say no. Do you want to know about this? You have to say no. Do you want to know about this? You have to say no. And then finally, he's like, do you want to know about the fallen spaceship? And you have to say yes. And if you say yes to that, then your character determines he can figure out how to find the spaceship under the ancient tomb. Other than that, you cannot open the spaceship. And it's in another town. So you have to go like across the map to some other village, to some innkeeper, and then say no 3 times.
I'm into it.
It's
Games used to suck.
I know.
Oh my God. Lewis from Scotland says, hey crew, happy Halloween. Hello, Lewis. Everyone always asks about your favorite games of the year so far or what you played recently, but what about those darn stinkers? What's the worst of the worst that have been through your consoles or PC lately?
The one that we were talking about earlier that I can't pronounce. Or
Oure? That's the worst game you played this year?
That one and Mr. Shifty.
What are you? I can't wait to see the score on Oure now, man. I'm really curious.
Yeah, it's an odd one. I keep track of every game I play every year, and I went back through the list, and it's a sad one because it's an interesting premise and a unique premise, but I think technically We Are Chicago is the worst game that I played.
Was that this year?
On Steam? Yeah,
that was this year. It was early.
Did anything stand out for you guys?
Not really, no.
All right. Woe Dog from Denton, Texas. This is a guy I want to hang out with.
Is it Wade? Is that Wade?
Wait a minute. Yeah, he's down in Texas. He says, hey guys, so I recently played through The Phantom Pain and loved it. My friend, a big Metal Gear Solid fan, told me to play Snake Eater, and I did not like it at all.
What?
The story and characters were fine, but the gameplay did nothing for me. I feel like we just had this argument in the office not too long ago.
We did.
The
we have it like every week.
And it's baffling to me that everyone refers to this game as a masterpiece. Are there any masterpieces that you cannot understand or don't agree with?
I will never understand people's love for Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons.
Is that considered a masterpiece?
Yes, people adore the game.
No,
like that was Game of the Year candidate everywhere. It was part of that indie explosion that people fucking adored. I hate that game.
Masterpiece is like a different level.
I really hate that game.
Okay, I can understand criticism of that game up until that ending, but without spoiling it, because I still think it's one of my favorite little twisty moments in all of video games. But I agree, like the puzzle design up until that point is pretty generic and okay.
I just don't. It did nothing.
I just don't know
for
if it's
me.
considered a masterpiece. I know it's
I
widely
don't think
considered
it
a
is
good to
either,
great game.
Yeah,
but not
so. Yeah,
like I think masterpiece. You think like a Mario or a Zelda. These recent two,
the
right?
Sistine Chapel.
Right, like top tier, absolute, like widely considered best by.
All right, well then,
consumers
like
and
Skyward
critics.
Sword, I'm in the camp of that's a bad game.
I don't think that's a masterpiece either.
People like. I mean, we gave it a 10.
Yeah. Does God of War count?
I think God of War won't. Yeah,
God of War.
counts,
Well,
sure.
God of War 2. I'd say.
I'd say they both count.
Yeah.
They still just
As
feel like a
considered
parody of
masterpieces.
video games to me. It's just, I think it's stupid.
They do. They do feel that way.
I'm trying to think. What else? What about you, Jeffem?
Well, I don't know if we'll consider this a masterpiece, but I am in the anti-Dragon Age Inquisition camp and have always been.
I don't think.
Well, hey,
It got a whole lot of Game of the Year awards, which is why
Do you
I bring
remember
it up as the
that
one.
year though?
I do.
Yeah,
It's a bad year.
Yeah, Tetris on my iPhone was in contention that year for Game
Well,
of
the
the Year.
way some people talk about it,
I know.
Oh, boy.
There we go. There we go.
By the way, for the record, I definitely agree with Jeff. I'm like really hard. That
Yeah.
game is so far away from being a masterpiece.
and
It's ridiculous.
it feels super weird. I can't remember if I've talked about this before, but it feels like Mass Effect Andromeda came out, and there were a lot of people who loved Inquisition, and now they're like, oh, there are all these problems with this game, and it's like, rewind a little and take another look at Inquisition, because these
Do you think
problems...
it's on the level of Mass Effect Andromeda?
No, not on the same level, but I think the problems that people were complaining about in Andromeda had been surfacing before in BioWare's previous
Oh,
games.
absolutely. I think the difference is like the writing Inquisition was like pretty good enough to those people that they could forgive like all those niggles, whereas like Andromeda's just bad all the way through.
Sure.
Yeah.
I didn't like any of those characters though in Inquisition, so it's a completely foreign idea to me that people like that.
I hear you.
Or Billy Corgan, the elf. Yeah, he was cool. I'm gonna go.
Zing.
I can't wait to romance him for 20 hours or whatever.
When are you going to romance him? I should say
Tonight.
Thank you. Anyways,
What a great
song. He says, P.S. I played through the rest of the Metal Gear Solids as well, and his ranking is 5, 2, 1, 3, 4. Great choice. I'm a 1, 2, 3, 5, 4 kind of guy. I don't know if you guys have opinions on the Metal Gear Solid ranking.
3, 1, 2, 5, 4.
Sweet. Beep, boop, bop, boop, boop. Anyways, Ian Levesque from Charlottesville, Virginia says, Hey, informers, give a short review of the last movie you saw in theaters.
In theaters?
Yeah.
Do we say the name of the movie or do
I think so.
I think that's more interesting than
How many
not saying
reviews do you write and not leave the name on there?
Hey, it could be a fun game to like try and guess what you guys are talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Start describing it.
Okay. Overly long. Ryan Gosling is handsome. There's too much synth.
La La Land. La La Land.
Exactly. La La Land.
Did you? Okay, so speaking of masterpieces to disagree with, I respect the first Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
Not an enjoyable movie to watch. I rewatched it before 2049.
It has not aged well.
Holy Lord, that's a
God, I
slog.
wanna go
Some
through
weird
this
stuff
again.
in there.
I don't want to go through this again.
Well, you guys have gone through this?
No.
Okay.
I had to hear you bash on it in the back in the black bolt.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I did. I talked for 8 hours straight about how I don't like Blade Runner. But I was literally sitting in the theater at the start of 2049 and thinking, what am I doing? 3 hours? I don't even want to be here right now. I really enjoyed 2049.
I did not enjoy it.
That's impossible.
I think I might have just been in like the wrong headspace or something. But I sat there and I watched all 3 hours?
Yeah,
2.5 hours. I was just bored. I was just bored the
That's
entire
the opposite.
time.
There's the setup, without spoiling it, within the first 5 minutes of the movie, I was like, I'm intrigued. Let's go. And then it actually had some twists and turns along the way instead of just a big, bad blah like the original Blade Runner. Again, all due respect for the time. For the time and place, all respect
I think
in the
Dan
world.
is about to explode over here.
That
come
movie,
over there.
that movie is a...
Dan's actually a replicant. He's losing his shit.
It is a chore to watch.
No, it is not.
2049, however, I was amazed that 2049 is as hand-holdy as it is.
I just do
At
not
least
like
it wasn't
that
a
movie.
chore.
Yeah, it really was. No, it
First
was
one didn't hold your hand, but
it was a delight.
chore. Yeah.
It was.
Unbelievable.
Dan, what's the last movie you saw in theaters?
I think honestly it was
Independence Day Resurgence?
it could have been no. It's the most recent Star Wars, I think.
Rogue One.
Yeah,
I thought you're a big movie guy.
I am, but I don't watch them in theaters anymore.
Oh, because
You
you
watch
want
those
that
on my
interactive
airplanes.
experience. Not until we can vote in the theaters are going to bring you back.
No,
in.
it's just like
Oh.
I just rarely go to the movies anymore. I do watch all the movies, but
Yeah.
not in theaters anymore.
Yeah. Jeffem?
I think it might have been Rogue One too. I can't remember. I feel like I have seen a movie since then, but I can't remember what it is. So
All right. What do you guys think of this? Nick in Atlanta says, what are your favorite third installments of movies and video games?
Third-
These questions are so bizarre.
He says, get Dan Tack back on the podcast. He says,
right.
for example, mine are Indiana Jones and Last Crusade and Mario 3.
Well, Last Crusade is an excellent choice.
I also had Last
Yeah.
Crusade in my choice, and for an oddball, SSX 3.
All
Underrated.
the fan fiction for Half-Life 3 I've read.
Like Mark Laidlaw's.
I actually need time. I mean, I to accurately handle this question, I would have had to prep. Like, there's
Yeah.
just so many threes I have to look through.
Too many threes to look through. I understand.
Diablo 3.
There we go.
There you go.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Adam in Chicago says, hey, people, I recently read that Sega wants to go back and revisit some of their old catalog of games.
Please.
As a Sega kid growing up, I'm cautiously optimistic, given they don't seem to be the same company they were back in the Dreamcast or Genesis days. That said, what Sega IPs would you like to see return, and how would you want them brought back?
Shining Force, absolutely. Please God,
That's a
give us
strategy
one.
thingy.
Yeah, I mean, with the success of Fire Emblem, you got to realize there's a market there. Please make that game again. It was so good, Shining Force, and along those lines, Shining in the Darkness. There is a great call, like all for the people who like games like Shining in the Darkness. We have to go to like Etrian series. That's pretty much all we have now.
Yeah.
So give us those dungeon crawlers, those old school dungeon crawlers.
You're going to get Shining Force Heroes on mobile. I hope you're ready for it.
I'll tell you what I'll do to that game, and it's not, yeah.
Shove it up your butt?
I was going to say that.
Good God.
Wow.
What was it? Comics Zone, the one with the kid going through the comic book.
I always get confused with Comic Jumper. Which is the Twisted Pixel one, and which is the old one?
Yeah.
Yep.
Comics Zone.
Yeah, Comic
Okay.
Zone. I'd love to have another one like that. I know
Yeah.
Framed kind of stole that idea, but
Okay.
one that's like that. I'm not really attached to any Sega IPs outside of that.
We need Alex Kidd back. Okay,
We
it's
need
time.
columns back, damn it. It's been too long.
Get them both. Get them both.
Together, the mashup.
Let's do
finally.
it. Let's do it.
Adam says that he really wants Skies of Arcadia, and that's like, oh yeah, totally forgot
Okay,
about that. But absolutely,
that's like the no-brainer. Like,
yeah. Yeah. Good luck getting it funded, but that would be amazing.
Kickstarter.
Let's see. What do we got? Ethan from TrenchMasonGI.com. Hello. He says, hey guys, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Game Informer crew sit down every year and discuss the Game of the Year winners. As you have discussed previously in the podcast, the E3 Top 50, Top 100 RPGs can get pretty heated. I was wondering, what was the toughest year for all of Game of the Year?
Well, it's going to be different because not all of us have been here as long.
That's right. Jeff, you're the oldest man in this table.
I would have to go back to Mass Effect, or not Mass Effect, Shadow of Mordor, and
that year. I was here for that
Inquisition.
year.
Inquisition. That's 2014. Destiny was always floating there as the
That
outlier.
year.
Where it's like Andy loves Destiny. God, that'd be weird if that weird flawed game made it.
And I was so anti-Inquisition that I would have been fine with that. I would have thrown it to anything else, throw it to the dogs for all I care.
That year got
Game of the Year
brutal.
2014, The Dogs.
Yeah.
That year had like faction sides, man.
Yeah.
And then like
It was
and then
bad.
mercenaries on each. It was.
I think I was on a
Ugh.
cover story trip for that meeting. I completely
You're
missed
lucky.
it. Yeah, apparently. But
It was
2012 stands out to me because it was XCOM versus Mass Effect 3.
Right.
That was an intense one. Dan?
I mean, we know.
We went with Mass Effect 3.
What a surprise!
And Dan, what would you have chosen?
XCOM.
Okay. I think that's the correct choice. But you know what? It's the overall group, and
I
Mass Effect
know.
won.
See, that's why I knew. That's why I made the face. And I know where the wind blows.
Matt from Chicago, Illinois says, "Hey, GI crew." Oh, by the way, Matt's a firefighter, and he had a lot of thoughts on Reeves saying he wanted to be a firefighter, and he said, "Yeah, it is fun."
Okay.
Anyways, Matt says, "Hey, GI crew, with the not so long ago release of the remaster of Final Fantasy XII, do you think there would be any chance that they could ever remaster Final Fantasy Tactics and Vagrant Story and call it the Evil East trilogy?"
I have no doubt that they'll remaster those games at some point.
But
There's
can't-
money there.
Okay, but those are different. Final Fantasy Tactics and Vagrant Story, it'd have to be a remake. You can't polish up a PS1 game.
Why not?
Because it's like hideous polygons. Like Final Fantasy 12, like that generation on, like what game have they made a
You're right,
remaster
okay.
of
So
from
they-
PS1?
Okay. I think we'll definitely see Tactics again. That game is still like revered as,
Yeah.
if we count that as a mainline Final Fantasy game, which is a whole other debate, it often takes first place.
Okay.
It's an incredible game.
I don't think
even
anybody
today.
would count it in the main line though.
I know, but you'll find people that do. Because they're like, hey, what's the best Final Fantasy? And you're like, oh, 4 or 6, like most people. And
7.
then 7.
For us babies.
7 for the children.
Uh-huh.
And then, but you'll find that one oddball who's like Tactics, and it's like you can't count Tactics. It's not but
Right.
yeah, it is really good. And then you
Then they walk out of the room.
if
with
you
a
compare
confident strut.
compare them, like I probably would hold Tactics above even 4 and 6.
Yeah. But it'd be tough to remake all those. I mean, they've been porting
It will
them around.
totally happen. They're remaking 7.
Yeah.
Tactics will happen.
Yeah, you're probably right.
And
Vagrant
for
Story would
Tactics,
be
they don't have to make
interesting.
it action based or anything. They just have to remake it. So
Tie everything together. Vagrant Story, in the credits, they reveal that it's part of a larger story they were originally going to tell that was called The Phantom Pain. It's true. It's true. In the credits, it's Vagrant Story: The Phantom Pain.
I'm looking this up.
Absolutely do it. I
All
swear to God. David, do you want to read this one?
Sure.
No reason.
Okay.
I swear to God, there's no reason other than I have to write down a curse. All right, go ahead. Take it away.
Okay. Hi, all. Jordan Bays from Overblood writing in to ask you a question, Ben.
Hello.
I know you're a gambling man.
Oh, Lord.
This is
If someone were to bet you $1,000 that the entirety of the Final Fantasy VII remake will be out in the next 10 years, would you take that bet? If it all does all come out, you would
I like
lose
Davey reading this.
$1,000. The game being a multi-part release made me think about when it could all possibly be out. P.S. Hope you're giving away some Final Fantasy stuff during Extra Life this year. I'll shell out the big bucks for that. Cheers, Jordan.
Wow. I would not take that bet.
I'd take
10
that
years.
bet. 10 years for it to be out? Yeah.
All 3 parts?
I figure they're going to be in development turmoil for about 5 more years. And then they crank the thing out real fast and it'll happen 10 years. Yeah. I'd take that bet.
I remember people thinking I was insane when they announced it at E3 a couple years ago. I said, I don't think it'll be out till 2020. And that seemed like some crazy sci-fi. That's basically 2049 at that point. And now it's like, I think that's realistic.
Once we know the scope of 10 years though, it'll all be out by then.
$1,000?
I'd take that bet easily.
I'm a gambling man. I would not take
you go.
that bet.
I'm not a gambling man. That's why I take the bet.
Final Fantasy, there actually is some Final Fantasy stuff during Extra Life. A couple cool bundles. Game focused more than crazy thing focused, but crazy game collections. So stay tuned for that. Waldo says, what are some excellent games that were rendered unplayable or died because their online services were retired?
Ooh.
Chrome Hounds.
Chrome Hounds, number 1.
Meridian 59.
Amplitude multiplayer.
Tabula Rasa.
There we go.
That's the only
Hellgate
reason you
London.
included this, wasn't
I
it?
don't know. I was trying to think.
You could just go through the list of dead MMORPGs that get, rattle them,
Yeah, rattle them off.
Yeah.
All right. Email of the week. What do you guys like?
I like the third installment one for some reason.
Really? The
I
one
kinda
that
like
Dan
that
was
too.
flummoxed by?
Because it is a weird question.
Yeah.
The rest of them seem very traditional.
Yeah.
Well, I like the Masterpiece one. That was a...
I
That had the
don't know.
I
Metal
like
Gear
the
Solid
Masterpiece
stuff
one, but
in
I
there.
wish Masterpiece would have been defined.
Yeah.
I think that's the fun debate, is trying to figure out what exactly a Masterpiece is. I like...
And I also like the $1,000 bet for Final Fantasy VII.
That's simple. I like the Getting Lost, Wandering one. I like the short review, and I like Masterpiece.
I either go with short review or masterpiece.
I don't like the short review one.
Do you like Masterpiece?
I didn't like that one either.
May I remind you that Masterpiece was Wodog from Denton, Texas.
Oh, Wodog.
All right,
He's
Wodog.
got my vote.
Jeff, you're going
Yep.
Wodog? All
Wodog
right,
all the way.
Wodog, Denton, Texas. We'll ship you out something real nice. Thank you so much. And that's it for emails. Remember, you can send anything into podcast@gameformer.com for next week's show. Anything that's fun or informative or educational, anything that'll make the show better.
Or scary.
Or
Or
patently offensive.
We'll take it all. Anyways, stay tuned now. We're going to have a roundtable discussion, not spoiling Mario Odyssey, but going a little more in depth on the kingdoms up until the credits roll. So stay tuned for
We
that.
clap, right?
Nope. Shut up, Andy.
Come on.
No, we don't.
No.
All right.
How does this work?
You
Podcast?
just sit there and let the music do its thing.
Oh.
And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm still here, now joined by Suriel Vasquez.
Hello.
Ben Reeves.
How's it going?
Kyle Hilliard.
Hey.
This is what we're unofficially calling a Game Club Light. We're doing exactly what we did with Breath of the Wild, if you remember from, what was that, 6 years ago? That
Yeah.
fantastic game came out.
1997.
That's it, you got it. So we're going to talk about Super Mario Odyssey. We're not going to fully rip off the Band-Aid and spoil everything, as much fun, debatably, as that be. But we want to kind of dive in somewhat deeper than Reiner did last week, have a more open discussion about, hey, what makes this game special?
Yeah.
So we need to stop talking wherever you are currently, Reeves. So where are you at in that game?
How many
I
moons
think
do
we
you
could
have?
talk a little bit further.
Yeah.
Over 120 something. I'm in the food kingdom.
Luncheon Kingdom.
I
Mm-hmm.
threw my hat at a
What?
tomato and it exploded into lava. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay,
So
so
once you do that, that's the line when you throw the hat at the tomato.
right, exactly that moment. No, realistically, it's like roughly credits, but I don't want to spoil the final kingdom before credits for Reeves or anything after that, including I'd prefer not to spoil something that's teased in a painting that comes to fruition later. If you catch my
Ooh.
drift.
Wink.
It's teased in the
Oh,
very,
wink.
very opening cutscene. as
Well, that might be
Oh,
it.
Kyle.
Thanks a lot, Kyle.
All right.
Suriel Vasquez,
Hi.
how has the game grabbed you? What do you think of it so far?
I like it quite a bit. I'm really into how much Nintendo has just sort of shifted gears from, I think, Galaxy. And I mean, I think a lot of people sort of say, "Oh, it's like Mario 64," but I feel like it is closest to Banjo-Kazooie. I think of all things.
Why do you say that? That's interesting.
Because I think that in Mario, even in 64, as much as you explored sort of the castle and walked around and got stars, it was all sort of goal oriented. Of just
Right.
you are in this world in order to get that star.
Yes.
And then you leave and then you come back. It's mission based in that way. I think Banjo-Kazooie. I don't want to like prop it up as like this. Banjo-Kazooie is secretly the greatest platformer ever, but it was structured in a way where here is the playground. Go do stuff in it, and you'll be rewarded with jiggies, and then eventually you will continue to unlock worlds. And there was a momentum to like, oh, I found this. Then I immediately went to this other part and got another jiggy. Like that Mario has that same, I think, progression.
It's a really brilliant structure, I think, just to kind of have that soft focused instead of being, Mario 64. This is your mission. You have to do this. Everything else is irrelevant. To have that main objective so many times, even to the point where you can turn on assist mode and it'll show you the footprints going right there. Like, hey, get to the top of this luncheon volcano.
Yeah.
But along the way, you're going to find a lot of the same things, which ultimately you're after here. But
Right.
the idea of this one kind of progresses the main campaign compared to just digging around out back. For moons.
There's a through line, but you can spoke off of it whenever you feel like it.
Yeah.
I was trying to think what about this game I like in terms of that progression, because there's so many games that I'm playing and I'm like, I don't know where to go, and I get immediately frustrated. And,
And you start shrieking.
where am I supposed to go? And I just yell at the top of my lungs until
It's
like
very
the
bothersome when
glass
he's
shatters.
reviewing a game. Yeah.
But with this game, it's like, well, they're not pointing. There's no giant arrow pointing me in any one direction.
Well,
but
there's
I
like
don't
there's a
mind it.
glowing
All right,
light.
Shut up. I'm talking. But and I think Zelda did this too, where it's like you didn't have like a giant arrow saying go here, other than the castle cereal. But but that didn't bother me there either. So it's like it kind of like has freed me in a way, in a sense of like, well, go explore the world and have fun in like these worlds that Nintendo designed are so fun to explore.
It is
That is just fun.
Yeah,
Like, go
it's
ahead, Cereal. I'm sorry.
There is a light that guides you where you're supposed to go.
Oh,
That's what I was
You
going to say.
son of a bitch.
It is nice though. It's weird that in 2017, two of Nintendo's, I mean, the biggest series around, they both are emphasizing freedom in a new way. Obviously, Breath of the Wild is them, with a bazooka of freedom firing into the air. But certainly with Mario Odyssey too, there's a lot of feeling of like, I guess I'm just gonna play around, to the point that I'm a super nerd, and so I was raving about this 2.5 hour video deep dive based on like 30 seconds of footage that Game Explain did, focusing on Metro Kingdom. I don't know, I think I shared it like in our Slack channel, where they just dissected everything that has been known and like trying to understand the map of Metro Kingdom. So after watching that for 2.5 hours, I felt like I kind of get Metro Kingdom, and still that was a real epiphany moment when I got into Metro Kingdom and started playing around. Like, this is still an absolute blast. I'm still discovering things all over the place. I feel like that was maybe the biggest impact throughout the game as far as just sandbox style. But is there another Kingdom that stands out to you, Kyle?
Just as far as like sandbox goes,
Yeah,
Metro
just pure
Kingdom's
fun.
definitely up there. I mean, I think the density of moons just in general in every level is what assists. So it's so important to like just being able to explore and just have fun, But in terms of like, I mean, there is Metro Kingdom, I think, is probably like the weirdest and most dense. It might even have the most moons, actually. Like, I just got them all yesterday, and there was like the last couple I got were things that really surprised me.
And last week on the podcast, I think Reiner said something about Metro Kingdom being the weakest level.
Did he really?
Did I? I guess you weren't
Reiner
there for
also
that,
said
that's
the
right.
bosses were no good, so
Yeah.
he's a
Well,
little
I
insane.
feel like he's fair, but he did give it a
I love the
9.75.
bosses.
So.
He did give it a 9.75. To be fair to Reiner's point about bosses, I mean, the Brutals, he mentioned that they repeat. And
They do,
and they definitely do. And it's not as outrageous as, not fighting the Koopalings again. I'm glad that they aren't in there. I'm glad it's something new. But outside of the Brutals, couple of repeating fights along the way, I feel like the novelty bosses are really, really spectacular, like including a twist at the end, Reeves. I'm sorry, but there's a brutal fight towards the end, before the credits at least, where
It
it's
wasn't
basically... What's that?
Go ahead.
It's basically a Metal Gear fight.
What?
They're like, it's
sure,
a giant wooden Metal Gear, and it's like, oh, this is like one of the best Metal Gear boss fights, or even
That's kinda awesome.
the fight against Bowser's dragon, which is just awesome that he has this giant, bizarre, almost realistic-looking dragon. I thought that fight was cool.
One of the fights I really liked was, I think, against Bowser, where you get his hat and has giant boxing gloves.
yeah.
and
Just beat
punch
the
crap
hell out of
him.
his
Yeah.
face.
But even,
Yeah, that was fun.
Even
Yeah.
the Brutals are just like, they're quick and they're super fun. It's just really straight on platforming. I mean, you do fight them each twice, but even the second times, the challenge is increased. Like, I really enjoyed them because they're so quick. You know,
it
it's
feel
3
more
hits,
like-
you're in and out, and it's super fun.
They feel more like mid-boss fights to me.
Yeah.
more than
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah. Except for that one vaudeville lanky MF-er Brutal. I just hate the look of him, that weird long
Yeah,
one.
Yeah, his like.
because he looks like you. Is that why?
Wait a minute. My God, it's like looking in a mirror.
I do think that they do feel more like mid bosses, and so like I think they sort of. I actually like them better when you're doing the boss rush mode, because I feel like they were better. They fit better in the idea of you're fighting one and then another instead of being their own sort of end level boss. They didn't feel sort of like strong conclusions to a level. Whereas I think some of the other bosses, like I think it's their mother, right? Like the one with the chain chomp on the leash. I feel like she was a pretty good cap to the pedally spaceship. I think was a good one. But
The funny thing about, like, you talking about, like, they don't really feel like conclusions is you can skip them, actually.
Can you?
Yeah, which I did not realize. Like, I know you hate this, Hanson. I was playing with my daughter, and she did not like the boss fights, and she figured
Why?
out they're hard. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But she likes exploring, and she got enough moons to just go to the next level without fighting the Brutal, which I didn't even realize was an option.
Yeah.
So you can
Man.
you can just skip them if you want,
Yeah,
as long
what's
as you
a-
find moons everywhere
Incidentally, is that a pun I don't get? Like Brutals?
A bridal.
Brood, as in like the spawn of like the rabbit, and also they're brutal because they're
also
bad.
They're really rude.
It'd make more sense if they're in like the bridal party, I guess. When it comes to
bundles,
names,
that would make more sense.
Let's spend the next hour discussing this.
I love Nintendo's localization. I'll really geek out over that crap. But the name that stood out the most is the official name for the Ruined Kingdom. The name of that specific area is Crumbledon. That's a very good, simple name.
I think we were recording a video. Oh, it was during the live stream that Serial saw that the parrot's name is Talkatoo.
Yeah.
And Serial you seemed really upset by how much you loved it.
Like, it's very good.
You got to give it up for the simple little things that are so easily glossed by with Nintendo. There's so much to focus on, but there's just those little details, like 8-4, the localization company. They were on the podcast a couple months ago, I guess, but they were just obsessed with Nabbit. In New Super Mario Brothers, where it's like it's so easy to fly by that, but you could not come up with a better name for a thieving rabbit than Nabbit. It's so good, and just like that level of detail.
It's also the game's funnier. I mean, it's not like Mario and Luigi level of like, oh, look at this really funny line. But compared to like Galaxy and 3D World, there's more just little snippets of dialogue that kind of I thought were humorous and funny. Just everyone talking
Coming from Cappy?
No, everyone, just like the character, especially like after you beat the game, characters start intermingling in different worlds and stuff, and just them reacting to the different places where they are is always strange.
Where do you stand on the Metro Kingdom specifically, and all those human characters being like, "Forget about it, I'm trying to walk here," and just like New York up the assing,
I don't know.
all dialogue.
I like it,
Okay.
There was one guy who's like, "Oh boy, this city," and then if you sit down next to him on the bench, because if you just stay on the bench, Mario sits down, which is adorable. You get a moon, and he thanks you for like, no one will talk to me in this city, Mario. Thank you so much for sitting next to me. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
I do feel like it is sort of this weird larger part of it where it feels like it has a lot of incongruous art style. So like New Donk City is a great example, but I think also that dragon felt like this, like because it is, I think, preceded by sort of the most archetypical Mario boss fight of that bird that has like these huge sort of very cartoonish eyes and looks exactly like what you'd expect. And then you're immediately moved into this dragon that looks like something that whole level looks like the first level of a Dark Souls game.
100%. Yeah.
And you're just, it feels like this weird interlude that they sort of maybe meant to expand upon of just like, well, let's have you linger here and have this very different looking world. But it's like it's really just one encounter.
Well, I assume you can. You do go back there, and there are other moons.
It is one of the smaller levels in the game. I think there's less. I think there's 9 moons there. Yeah. And I went there like as soon as I could go back. That was the level that I really concentrated on. I was like, I want to get everything here. So I was a little bummed that's one of the smaller ones. But man, the Dark Souls we always compare everything to Dark Souls.
Naturally,
we're comparing it in a different way.
Yeah, it's not because it's hard or anything.
Don't expect a level to look like a Dark Souls stage in the middle of a Super Mario game. I'm sorry to ruin that.
No.
The diversity of art. I saw like Alex Grenling, who's done a couple of Game Informer covers. He's a very smart graphic designer. He was saying that it doesn't hold a candle to like the art and a clean, focused art direction of 3D World. But
it's more
at the same
consistent
time,
in 3D World.
If you want that variety, even like the starting area, the first kind of sandbox place where it's just Tim Burton-y, Danny Elfman, Cappy world, where it's like, what is
this the Wooded
art?
Kingdom?
No, like the black and white.
It's called
the big.
Kingdom.
Okay.
Yeah. It's such a bizarre vibe. Like,
right.
If I was just trying to describe that to somebody outside of Tim Burton, Danny Elfman, I'd have a really tough time. Like, what is the theme here?
Like black and white, kind of afterlife sort of hats. A lot of hats.
Everyone knows
Ghosts,
afterlife
by the way,
in black
ghosts.
and white. Yeah, exactly.
Is there any way they
tone.
didn't mention Tim Burton while they were designing that level?
I don't know. I assume. Yeah, I mean, he's popular over there in Japan. I'd imagine in some way.
I think there's a nice joy in seeing like Mario, like those contrasts. But I think sometimes it feels a little bit sort of weird because I think the Luncheon Kingdom is sort of this weird example of. Yeah. I think it's supposed to be themed around food, but it doesn't.
Got the idea.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's 100% there. Like you see a lot of the platforms and they're flipping, and I was trying to figure out: is this like a food? Is this some sort of snack? And the platforms all look sort of.
Can I eat this?
Yeah, like that's sort of the thing that I was.
It's really Wonka's factory.
It's like this weird combination.
Lava.
Yeah, it feels like this weird combination of like crystalline and food that felt like I'm not sure what the direction is here.
Yeah.
It's like vaguely colorful, but it doesn't. It's not like everything is made out of donuts or like here's this fountain of like chocolate or whatever. It didn't feel like it completely committed to that gimmick.
Yeah, the Luncheon Kingdom is a good example because I was watching gameplay footage before the game came out, and in that one specifically, it was a moment of like, this game will look good, but I don't know. Maybe it's going to be a little bit not lifting as much weight graphically as I would expect. Because I think in that world in particular, everything is so kind of
angular
and
Angular,
kind of
smooth.
simplified.
Yeah,
Monochromatic for a lot of objects, stuff like that. But I don't know. Do you guys think the graphics hold up in other worlds?
I liked it. Yeah, and I think I liked the variety of every level. I'm like, I don't know what's going to be next.
Yeah.
Like the Seashore Kingdom.
Right.
I was like, well, I don't really want to do another water level when I was going in, but then I got there. I'm like, oh, this actually looks pretty cool. Reminded me a little bit of Mario Sunshine.
Oh, for
Light,
sure.
colorful.
And that's the one.
Seaside.
That's the one where you can take over like the squids, right?
Yeah,
I really love that one. Just
Discussions.
navigating like vertically or horizontally, where at first it feels like a bizarre control scheme, but especially with that boss, where you find yourself just like flying above him in his kingdom. It's like, well, this is something I never expected to play in Mario Odyssey.
It's also all in favor of the gameplay, which is like really important. And like you're talking about, like specifically Luncheon Kingdom, those things that flip over.
Yeah.
It's like you're kind of like, what is that supposed to be? But there's no question about its
What you're
gameplay
supposed to
mechanic.
do,
You
yeah.
cannot touch the fiery side.
unless
of the
you
thing,
unless you are a fireball, in which case the
Yeah.
purpose of the platforms inverts, where the ones that are flat you don't want to land on, but when they're boiling you want to jump on them.
And I think it makes the game more fun to play.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's kind of, I love it. I like how weird and like how things don't really line up in
Abstract it
some-
can sometimes feel.
But yeah, I think it's all just to make it more fun to be in that world.
Yeah. On the topic of the variety, I don't know if it's fair to say this is a knock against the game, but something that I feel going through it, I'm just floored by the variety. I absolutely love it. There's a part of me that's like, I love having an iconic kind of home base in a 3D Mario game, right? Like I love Peach's Castle, even like the face ship for Mario Odyssey 2 or Galaxy 2 or Galaxy 1, where you're kind of walking around like the space station hub. Just having that, when you think back to the game, you think of like this one central location. And I don't know if the Odyssey really does it for me in this one. I don't know. Do you think that's... Do you guys
not
enjoy
much
it?
of a
I feel like
hub.
it is sort of that departure, because I mean the title of the game is Odyssey, so it's like a road trip basically of just not having a home base. I think is a large part of it, but I think sort of that sort of hub, lack of a central area, I think sort of turns the worlds themselves into these central areas. And I think that sort of speaks to some of the pacing of the game, where it's less about sort of moving forward, but more about moving around in like squares or circles, where you're sort of just exploring the areas.
Yeah.
But I also feel like that is sort of, I don't know if it's like something that I dislike about it yet, but it feels like, because of the number of moons in the game and the different ways you can get them, it like moons feel a little bit less satisfying than they did in like 64 or Galaxy, where it's just like, oh, I guess I just happened to do this one puzzle. Here's the game's main reward here.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably because you're getting so many of them, right?
Right.
They were paced out
Right.
more. When you get like a 3 set, like a triple moon, do you feel rewarded?
I do.
Do you feel alive?
Yeah, it's the only
get
way.
off
It's the
on
only
that?
way I can. But I think sort of the number of moons also is weird, because sometimes you'll do a thing that's like, oh, I'm definitely getting a moon for this, like, because it always seems to reward sort of exploring and doing some things that you see in the distance, and it's like, okay, I bet, you know what, I know how games are designed, I bet I can do a thing here,
Or even like a little vibration thing, like, okay,
Right.
a new butt stomp here. Coins, what the hell?
yeah. So it creates this expectation of you're going to be rewarded for always exploring. So when you're not, because you are always in that mode of like, I need to be on the lookout for, you know, whenever there might be a moon. And so when you're not rewarded that, it feels sort of empty, and you end up feeling a lot like, oh, you just walk into a room and you complete this very simple puzzle. Okay, I guess that's interesting, but it never sort of reaches.
I
the
hear you.
highs.
I feel like it almost makes up for it on the flip side, though, for having collecting coins matter on a couple different fronts. Even the base coins, you know, replacing the live system, I think is brilliant. I think it totally works. I'm excited to collect coins now, just so I can buy more stuff. And then especially with the purple coins, like I am always excited in a way that I've never really been in a Mario game, but like I gotta collect that currency, because buying new costumes is one of my favorite
gotta
things
look like
in
a
the
scientist.
game.
What's
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
favorite scientist? That's the one you went to?
That-
Do you have
that's
a
pretty
favorite
good.
one that you like? So I really like, it's one of the early levels, but just like running around as Cowboy Mario.
It is really good, and
Yeah.
especially combined with like the poncho and the cowboy hat.
Also,
I like.
when wearing the pirate one a lot, but sorry.
Oh yeah, I like the artist smock that has paint on it.
Okay.
I also really like just a Zoot Suit Mario. I think that's a really cool look. And not to spoil something, but there's something you get very early on after seeing credits, an option in the next kingdom that is just like the coolest suit. I'd be surprised if there's something cooler in the game than that. costume.
There's some spoilery ones that I won't go into that are. There's one.
I think GameSpot keeps tweeting them out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Don't follow them.
But I want to say one thing real quick, Cyril, about your talking about like the moons almost not feeling like they have value. I will say that I agree with you, but now that I'm like kind of wrapping up towards like the end of it, I'm at like 670 moons or something like that, and now I'm at that point where I go to a world and I'm like, oh, I got about 10 left here. Now they feel a lot more value.
I can definitely see that.
I think you get back there after a while.
I also feel like that, to jump off of that a bit, I feel like it speaks to sort of how, like with both Breath of the Wild and Mario, it feels like they're sort of pushing away from the center towards these extreme experiences where I think, so with Mario and Zelda, it feels like you can have sort of this baseline experiences in Zelda where you can go from dungeon to dungeon and then beat Ganon, and then in Mario where you can just go through the main campaign and not really explore. And then there's this other side of it, this post-game thing where you can get every shrine in Zelda and try to get every moon in Mario, where it just feels like you either do the sort of simple version of the game or you do the much more intricate version of the game.
Whereas before, I'm picking up where you're going here. So as before, it was more of like a linear path of like, okay, you can beat 3D Land, but then the special stages is where the bulk of the game is going to be for like more advanced players. Whereas here, it's like all available at the same time for the most part. I understand Odyssey adds a new layer, but it's just a wider lane of like you can follow the path or you can run from highway to highway.
So whereas in 64 and specifically it's numeric, right? So in Mario 64 the baseline number was 70, which was a higher bar to clear than I think it is in Odyssey. Relative to how many there are in the game, and then like the full version is 120, and in Galaxy it felt like there were fewer. The percentage was sort of higher for the baseline, and then the 100% was like a little bit more effort. Whereas here it feels like you can either do this very small amount of relatively small amount of effort, or you can sort of do a lot more and be completely satisfied. So I feel like that middle ground is a little bit missing, I think.
It is almost kind of like when did they decide like we should put credits here, because like there's so much of the game. Like
what would you prefer that they not?
I'm not saying they shouldn't have credits or anything. I'm just saying that I don't know what I'm saying. I'm very confused. I think the sense of like there's so much to this game. How do they say like this is how many moons you should get before going on to the next kingdom?
I think it feels
because there's so
good.
much you could explore here.
I think the stopping point does feel good. I think it does feel climactic, and now it's just a matter of like, okay, if you want to keep going. But if I was like a kid, a very dumb, stupid young kid, unlike any child who might be connected to somebody in this room, like I would feel really content stopping at that point and be like, what a game. All right, clapping the hands, playing something else. It's nice to give players that option. Or you can be like Kyle and just dig in deep. And so I'm curious about like your level of enjoyment through the game. Like how much of the bulk of your enjoyment is before credits, after credits?
I kind of like the harder 3D Mario stuff. That's kind of a weird question. It's been consistent throughout.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it kind of peaked for the finale. Like, I was like just like giggling like a madman during the final boss. That whole sequence is so great.
It's very good.
And
and without spoiling, it's one of those like, there's a couple moments, both like the kingdom right before the final boss and then the one right after where it's like, of course, why didn't I see this coming? I mean, it's right there.
But it's been pretty. The one thing I like about it is I do hit like, because I didn't, the only 3D one I haven't 100%ed was Sunshine. But like 64 and Galaxy 2 and 3D World, I did hit a point kind of late on where I was like, I know exactly what to expect. I'm just I'm still enjoying myself, but kind of going through the motions a little bit here. Where in this, like, I feel like I am still seeing new stuff that really surprises me constantly.
Just within the same kingdoms, though.
Yeah, even within the same kingdoms, going to different places, like I'll find things I was like, oh my god, I didn't know I could do that, or like, and I've gotten all the transformations now because it gives you the list so you can see when you've gotten them all. But even still, like I've seen all the transformations. Now I'm doing like surprising stuff, like stuff I didn't think I would enjoy, even like the races against the turtles.
Yeah,
like that I've actually
turtles.
Yeah, or the Koopas or whatever I guess. That I've been coming to really enjoy. Actually,
are you even a Mario fan?
What the hell is he talking about?
I'm sorry.
This is disgusting.
The turtles, you guys know the turtles.
Well,
have you been playing the new like Blink game?
You've been like,
my favorite villain is Bowser.
Bowser.
But sir, you've been like
Bowser.
You've been combing through this pretty meticulously, right? Getting the moons. Is that, I don't know. Are you having as much fun as the rest of us going with that way? Because I haven't focused in on a kingdom like you have. I just don't know if it's fun to scour like you are.
It's not so much like I'm going to wait until I have every shrine. It feels like, or every moon before I move on. It's more like you as you're wandering, you sort of see these threads of like, I bet there's something there, right? It's basically, I explore until I'm satisfied with like I've explored all of the threads that I noticed. I'm sure I'll come back and just finish it off. But yeah, I feel like I was dawdling a lot early on, and then I kind of mainlined it towards the end. And I do find I did enjoy myself. Like there was a point where it's like, okay, I've exhausted everything that I've noticed. I'm good to go on the next one. I'm having beaten the game. I am a little intimidated by the number of shrines because I'm not sure if like.
Hey guys, he said shrines. Let's make fun
Kyle,
of him
leave him
first.
alone. He
God,
knows
you
Mario.
Idiot. You don't like
Moons.
Mario.
What the hell, dude?
Kyle, that's rude.
Sorry.
Step off, bro.
So I am a little intimidated about because there's no 800 moons or something. Like is that an accurate?
I think it's like a 800 plus. I think.
Somewhere around there. I'm intimidated by like hitting a point where, all right, I feel like I've exhausted sort of my own prowess in terms of finding these. I don't want to hit a guide because I feel like half the satisfaction comes from finding them yourselves.
Yeah.
But I don't want to, like I'm so close. I don't want to resort to that, and so it's a little intimidating from that front.
Do you have a problem like talking to Toad then?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Do you consider that a guide?
I think so, but I don't consider it cheating because it is sort of like a thing.
Because I think that's why I've been able to maintain consistent fun. Is like even though it's like I got 2 moons left. Here's Metro Kingdom. I'm just like there's never a point where I'm looking out at it. I'm like, I don't know, man. North, I guess. Like you can talk to Talkatoo, and you can talk to Toad, and you can spend 50 coins, and you at least get an area of like there's something here.
I've been avoiding
which helps a lot.
So it doesn't feel cheap to you?
No, I mean every now and then it might give you the exact location of like it's like I just butt slam here. But there's a lot like for example that guy on the bench that I had to talk to, like it put an X by him. But I had to solve the puzzle of like, I got to sit down and talk to him,
right?
Which is frequent. Like that's how it usually goes.
It's also pretty clever about the way it hints you because they did a really good job of naming every moon, and sort of the Talkatoo will just say, here's the name, from there extrapolate what that means. So if it's like, sky high course number 2, you're like, okay, there's definitely another one of those. I should, explore some of the upper areas of New Donk City or something. So I think they act as a hint without saying like, go talk to this person, do this thing. So they're not that explicit. So I don't necessarily feel like it's cheating. That said, I can definitely feel like any sort of like there was one point in the squid boss fight, which I think is my least favorite, but because I found it the most frustrating, where they just said, "Oh yeah, make sure to get above him." That was like, "Oh okay." So I like that was a very explicit hint that made me feel worse about like going through that boss. Yeah, about the rest of my life, and I'm depressed all the time. But I do like that the rest of the hints in the game don't feel as explicit.
It's very nice that Cappy, if you go into like a door and it takes you to like a world that's off to the side, Cappy will say, "Oh, I think there's some purple coins in here," or "There's one more moon you can find in here," or he will say, "You found everything in here. You don't have to look here anymore," which is really
that's
nice
helpful
too.
to know that I can check out Toad because I just see that 1-2 punch of Toad coming out of the woodwork alongside, "Hi, I'm Uncle Amiibo. Put your dumb physical microtransactions on me." It's like, ugh, this is just the freak corner. I don't want to deal with either of these weirdos.
Toad is in game. I understand
That's what he calls himself.
I understand your reticence for amiibos. I haven't messed with those either, but Toad is fine. Like the hints are minor enough where it keeps you from having to like wander around aimlessly and hope you run into something.
Also,
and the amiibos it takes like 5 minutes for your amiibo to go find a coin. Like it almost felt like more work than it was worth.
Wait, what does it do?
Use an amiibo.
Well, let's see. Bowser, I think, shows you purple coin locations. I think Peach will give you hearts, and I think Mario will give you a moon hint.
Right.
And then everyone else will give you like what you're talking about.
And
like
you can use a random amiibo to like you scan it in, and it's like it'll go find an amiibo a shrine for you. Yeah. And then like after 5 minutes,
good luck fighting Boozer,
and it shows you where the shine is. Gosh, I can't even remember.
The moon,
everybody. Wait, what game are we talking about?
You've been reminded of it 800 times throughout the course of the game. Okay.
So anyway, that's what it does. And just felt like it was like, I don't want to wait 5 minutes for these amiibos to come back and tell me where to go.
A little freak
I'll just
army.
pay Toad.
Yeah, and it keeps the pace of the game up.
Yeah.
So
and
you're not wandering aimlessly.
This is one of those dumb conversations to have in 2017, but I think we all need to get on our knees and pray to dear Lord Nintendo and thank dear Lord Nintendo for the idea of Mario wearing different clothing is tailor-made for microtransaction.
Oh yeah,
BS loot box garbage, and just not a hint of it. It's just they're relatively easy to get. Everything self-contained. Thank God Nintendo.
You can play offline for Christ's sake.
Right. Either Nintendo is so pure and holy, or just behind the times, whatever it is just such a wave of relief.
Yeah. Would you guys be open to DLC though if they like buy a new world?
Oh,
if it's in the same vein as Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Like I'd be okay with that.
A whole new world,
a new fantastic point of view.
Yeah. I'll take me with you. I would pay money for that. Sure.
Yeah.
Nintendo. Yeah, but that's like different than like loot box. Like here's new hats and shirts. Like, oh, yeah, I'm with you there. Like that's gross.
Hey, Reeves, you are notorious for a stony stare while playing games.
Yeah, I look like this.
It's just an immovable object.
And then you scream. And those are your two, as we've established.
Yeah, two extremes.
What has made you smile throughout this game? Did you have a moment of, oh, this is a delight?
Well, like I said, like the hat scene where I'm just punching the crap out of Bowser. I really enjoyed that. I think
Violence.
The one thing I liked the most of this game is like early on when we heard about it, like, oh, you're going to be like capturing enemies, like jumping into their bodies. I'm like, that sounds really fun. But I was a little worried too. It's like, oh, am I just going to spend most of the game jumping from enemy to enemy?
Totally.
And those moments have been really fun, but I also feel like I've been Mario most of the game, so it like feels like a diversion when I'm jumping into those guys. I really like those like caterpillar dudes, whatever they're called, with the elongated bodies.
Well, that was the
I had a lot of fun with those.
Yeah, the weird poison level. That was the first one where it felt like it really changed up the pace, where it's like, I don't see that much to explore, but that seemed to emphasize, I mean, to call them puzzles might be an exaggeration, but a certain amount of like, okay, it's a smaller contained space. You're actually going to have to try a little bit to find the amount of moons here. And a lot of it was being a caterpillar and going around the purple toxic stuff to get into a little crevice you didn't get into before. And
by the way, I like that the worlds, I mean, they're dense, but they're not big. You know, like you're not really spending a lot of time just getting from point A to point B. Like I feel like they're small enough where I can kind of visualize them fully.
Yeah, I guess the Sand Kingdom is the biggest. It's kind of cool in that one to have like, okay, I'm just running around the dunes for a little bit here.
But I think of something like Banjo-Kazooie, those levels were really big, and I never really felt like I had a good like internal map for a lot of them.
Sure.
Like, I would get lost, but I really don't feel like I get lost.
Yeah,
in
I think
Odyssey levels.
they're all sort of like diorama sized. Even some of the multi-layered ones, like the Woodakin, which I think is my favorite, just because it has that hidden area that you fall into.
The deep woods.
Yeah.
That place, it's the equivalent of like the spooky eel in Mario 64, where if I was a kid playing that, it'd be terrifying. Like it's dark, the ground's shaking when the T-Rex is
I will
coming.
say the dragon was the second thing that reminded me of Dark Souls, because that one was the first where you just fall into this wooden area. It feels like that forest in the original Dark Souls where all the ghosts are running around and killing you. Like that felt like a very like, okay, what is this game? Like what is this game going to be? Is this just going to be a litany of like very secret areas that are just very dark? But it ended up being sort of like the exception rather than the rule. But I definitely enjoyed that moment of like, what is it? Like what just happened? Are they trying to like
wearing a fedora?
Yeah,
just awesome.
To make it not
I'm just
scary,
like,
I guess.
I've seen you before. I'm putting on a hat. Like,
And I'm not too familiar with the Dark Souls series, but most of them are about marriage, right? And it's just an elaborate metaphor for planning for a wedding.
Actually, Dark Souls 3 a little bit, right?
The Dark Soul.
Dark Souls 3.
What?
The Dark Soul comes and kidnaps, your friend, and they take them off, and you have to go find them.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What do you think about the weird marriage theme running throughout this? It's like, oh, Bowser needs to hire a photographer for the wedding.
Go to this world, steal all the food or the wedding ring or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
Invite the in-laws in this kingdom.
I like that there's a line, I guess, drawn between them. But it was kind of like, oh, I don't need a reason to be here necessarily. It doesn't have to be this wedding dress was stolen, but I'll take
Bowser's seating diagram. I also find it weird, like, I mean, spoiler, but like, just when you do get there, there's this weird sort of like, what is going, like, why is this happening?
Who's invited to this wedding?
Exactly. And you're just like, there's a weird sort of narrative thread at the end that just feels so out of place of just like, okay, first of all, I'm going to disregard the fact that like none of this makes any sense. And then
How
at
did
the
Pauline get here?
Yeah, and the resolution of that thread is just like it ends in this really weird, again, I don't want to spoil it. It ends in a way of just like, I thought the whole point was for this to conclude in this like interesting way, and then it sort of like L shapes into this weird thing where Peach does something that I'm just like, what is like? I'm not sure what her motivations are.
This game, more than any other Mario that I can understand or that I can remember, like emphasizes maybe Mario and Peach aren't as tight as Mario thinks. Like, is Peach kind of on her own thing, and she sees Bowser and Mario on equal footing of kind of creeper?
Like, oh, these dudes, like, they keep battling over. It's like,
yeah.
We asked them. Do you remember? We asked the director and the producer about this at E3.
Yes, we did.
I don't remember what they said.
They
but it
said something like, "Oh, the mind of a woman is hard to fathom," or something like that.
Yeah.
Super
I
cryptic.
don't remember.
Was it a Sphinx riddle?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
But they did say something like, "Well, I can't imagine that like Peach isn't sort of into him." They also said
something like that,
something like that as well.
Ellipses
so it's like,
or whatever.
Yeah, what does Peach like Mario? I think is straight up what we asked him.
Yeah.
That's a real question after playing the ending of this game. Is I don't know what is going on within the lore.
I've been reading Super Mario Adventure, which is like this old comic that appeared in Nintendo Power.
Is that the one that Kotaku wrote about where Mario's
Maybe.
flashing his weenie?
No, that's something different. I don't
Okay.
have the weenie version.
Okay.
But there, just as a quick aside, there's actually a whole sequence in that comic where Bowser tries to marry Peach, and she's even wearing like a wedding dress and has the piranha plant bouquet. And stuff like
Really?
that.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, weird.
Just weird.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they would have taken that into account, but it is amazing how much of Mario's history they're giving the nod to. And I think at this point, we can talk about the festival at the end of the Metro Kingdom.
Yeah.
So amazing. Just
Yeah.
this bizarre, giant reference to Donkey Kong where you're working your way up there. And there was so much debate ahead of time. I mean, the internet was on fire about, like, is Donkey Kong going to be in this game? And as far as I can tell, the answer is kind of, the old Donkey Kong.
Yeah,
It's a
Spoilers, if you
cameo
want it.
more than anything.
Yeah.
Reeves and I were talking about it a little bit because that was another thing we talked to them about at E3. You know, we got them to kind of give us the wink of like, oh, who knows, play the game. And I was actually hoping for like a fully rendered like Donkey Kong, like in the, you know what I mean, like 3D, like looked like he belonged there. But it was still very cool how they,
I think it was a cool insert. I guess I was kind of hoping for more. I was a little disappointed. Which
Really?
just
I think it was mostly our own expectations.
It was my
though,
own expectations because Pauline's there. Like she's like fully rendered 3D model. So I was like, oh, it'd be cool to see what Donkey Kong's doing. Is he wearing a suit? Is he like a gangster? Like it's just like they could have done something interesting.
He was doing all that graffiti in the sewers, I think, is what Donkey Kong
well,
was
and
up
what
to
they
this whole
did
time.
felt like a safe cameo.
It was also
which is
weird with
fine.
Pauline when you first encounter her and, it's raining and stuff. And she's like, oh, I'm so busy. This town's in trouble. Look at this. There's no like, hey, good to see you, Mario. Or hey, Mario, it's been
You remember that
35
time?
years or whatever the hell.
Yeah, because they used to be a couple, right? Like,
They're Mario versus
is that
Donkey
still
Kong.
is that still like canon? Like, why is he after Peach now? Does she care? I don't know.
I feel like we were approaching a uncanny valley where I think before when people ask them like Mario lore questions, it'd be like, why do you care? But like I feel they are slowly embracing sort of that lore, and I think it's leading to a lot of like important questions that need answered.
Yeah.
Like specifically, you go into that sewer area like that Hansen mentioned, and you realize at some point that the city is powered by moons. And I thought that was
thousands of moons.
Thousands of moons, right? And I wasn't sure how I was supposed to take that. It was just, is this some Soylent Green moment where it's like, it's running on moons? Or if I was supposed to be like, oh, of course, this is how this whole city works and this entire, like, I don't know if Nintendo meant for that to be like an oh wow moment or.
Moons
if I
are
just
living
sort of,
creatures cereal, yeah.
I think
that's true. They have eyes. So
They
it's like,
cry.
is Pauline sort of complicit in the murder of like thousands of moons?
And originally, all of Metro Kingdom was covered in moons, and now people just can't find the remaining ones. It's like secret vats of oil just sitting around New York City. Like, I hope no one goes on this roof and discovers this oil.
Are they hidden because they're hiding? I think a question we need to pose.
It is weird to see the camera pan a little bit, and you see in the distance, like, oh, there's little pipes with moons in it. Then you realize there's hundreds of pipes with hundreds of moons floating.
Right.
It's just the Matrix catacombs.
Just
of people.
millions of moons.
Good God, no.
You guys hear a munching after Mario collects a moon?
Straight up effed up.
Bones breaking, yeah.
This game made me appreciate the Switch's ability to take pictures so quickly all over again. Like, it was huge in Breath of the Wild, but the photo mode in this game is so good. And it's such a brilliant little Nintendo touch to have, like, those areas where it'll give you a hint about where a moon is. And it's like, hey, make sure to use the Switch's sweet functionality of a quick photo mode to go in there.
It is kind of a reminder of like, oh yeah, they really try to inject things that use the hardware well.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, that is okay. Yeah, that's really smart.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I mean, are you guys playing two separate Joy-Cons? Are you doing what they secretly want you to do?
No.
No.
I'm Pro Controller, TV all
yeah,
the
I'm
way.
using Pro Controller.
Yeah,
I do shake the controller a little bit though to
Do
speed
you?
up. There's a couple. I think there were. I'd have to try to like count, but I know there's at least one. I've gotten like at least 3 moons that you cannot get without motion controls. Like there's one in the Sand
Without
Kingdom.
motion controls?
Yeah, like there's one in Sand Kingdom, for example, where you have to go a really far distance with a bullet bill.
Okay.
And if you just tap Y,
You're not gonna get there.
You're not gonna get there. But if you shake the controller, you'll get there.
I think there might be
You mean
one in
you got
Wooded Kingdom
the moves
too,
with motion controls.
because I think
Yes,
the whatever they are that stand on stilts.
Yeah.
I think you get taller if you shake the motion control. I
Yeah.
think there's one thing that
The
I
frog
got.
will also jump higher with motion
Right.
controls.
I mean, I guess I use it for like climbing poles and stuff. It'll get you up faster and whatnot. But
yeah.
like, I've never really used like the spin the hat around in a circle thing.
I use that a lot, but you can just spin the control stick.
Oh, really?
Oh,
yeah.
really?
So there's
Okay.
the only attack that I have not found a non-motion equivalent to is the homing hat, where you throw out the hat and then you shake again to make it home in.
Yeah.
Everything else I've found. Oh, and throwing vertically up. I haven't figured out how to do that. Without motion
Can you
controls.
throw the hat in a circle around you?
Yeah, so you spin the control stick and throw the
And
hat,
then throw the hat?
which is
Okay.
really handy. You should actually use that. And then the other one is if you butt slam and then throw the hat, he'll throw it where he throws it further vertically.
Yeah.
So there's like little tricks like that where you can get away with not using motion controls.
Yeah, I still feel like motion control is like in Mario games. It's still. I don't think it ever improves the game. I don't think that in Galaxy
I like
2,
it in Galaxy. I like flinging
Yeah.
Mario up into the air. Like I thought that felt pretty.
I don't know. It just felt like just put it on a like. Sure, you can give me the motion version, but just like make the motion functionality and the button functionality. Just make them equivalent. I don't see the need here for motion control exclusive abilities.
I think with Galaxy, it's a good example, right? Where it is handy to have that little shooter every once in a while if you want to stun an enemy just to have fun. You can run up and kick them. So that's one where it couldn't be done on a button.
Sure. But I think like the
So shut up, sorry.
Okay, I guess. But like here specifically, it feels kind of like specifically some like the bullet bills or other abilities that like force you to use the motion control. Just like, hey guys, this thing has motion control. Please use it. Like that stuff feels kind of like reined in a way that I don't.
See, for
I don't
me, the
necessarily
bullet
care
bill
for.
example actually for me kind of felt like a fun puzzle. Like I kept trying to go and get there and I couldn't get there and I was like, am I missing something? And it was a nice sort of revelation to be like, oh wait, I go faster if I shake the controller.
Yeah.
So if it's not like force fed to you and it's kind of like a bonus ability, I kind of like it. But I see what you're saying. It would be nice to have direct equivalence.
Yeah, I think I would be on the opposite side of that if I felt like. I guess I forgot that motion controls power everything up in this game. I would just be like, yeah, sure, whatever, Nintendo. Okay, sure.
Just turn off
Sounds
the game.
fun.
I guess so. What a good game, you guys.
I love it.
Oh, real good.
Yeah.
Okay, no sarcasm allowed here. It really is just that it's
We'd like it.
I know it's increasing the more I play it, and I'm curious what my journey is going to be like after this. But like that moment after credits roll might be the peak of like what just a delight.
Yeah,
what a
absolutely.
relief to play this game this year.
I said this at E3, but it was like, it's nice to have a game that just feels like pure fun. Like everything they put into this game just feels like we just want players to have fun. Don't think about it too hard. Like just relax, have fun, enjoy. It's so fun that
Take your shoes off.
It's one of those games I kind of want to savor. Like I just play and I'm like, oh, I'm just having fun. I don't want to like rush through this.
Just little details where it's like there's no reason to have this in except that it makes players feel just a little bit happy, and they're just simple stuff like I think it's in the Sand Kingdom, but where it has kind of like this is a tough thing to convey, two kind of speeder moving. How would you describe this thing?
Bicycle?
Use more words.
Okay, like not the hub of a bicycle tire. Like when bowling balls come back up the thing?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, it's two like disc-like objects that are spinning, and you throw Cappy through it, and it speeds it along.
Oh, yeah,
and there's
yeah,
one
yeah.
kind of elaborate one where it's just a whole series of those, and you just get coins the entire way based on one throw. It's such a simple thing to
That
give
feels
players
good.
15 coins, but it'll make everybody happy when they
Another
do
one.
it.
It's like watching dominoes fall.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
If you don't move Mario, his idle animation, he'll lay down, and whatever world you're in, a bird will come and sit on
It's
your
a different
nose.
bird in every world.
Yeah.
The snow world has penguins, so that's the best one.
Yeah, those penguins
That's
are
really
flying
good.
around much more than I expected.
Don't worry about it. Don't
knowing
think
Mario
about it too much.
64
It's
and
just
stuff.
fun.
Mario's dance animation in Metro Kingdom. Did you guys see
Everywhere.
that?
Anytime there's
I
a
sat there and
boombox.
watched him
Yeah.
dance for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, like during the big venue when those weirdos are like chanting,
Yeah.
play the Mario
If
song.
you just stop moving, he'll dance.
It does really soak it all in moment. Like, just a delight.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to like Nintendo. I mean, we said don't overthink it a few times, but it also feels like it speaks to Nintendo's design philosophy, where I think at their best, Nintendo makes it look so easy to just.
Oh, yeah.
Like give you an area to explore, give you fun rewards. It's all you need. Like it's all you need for game design, and it often is. It is obscured by how much I think they put into it. But it also feels like I don't understand why developers are overthinking it by adding so many systems, and like Nintendo always seems to speak against that. Of just guys, it's way easier than you think. You just have to do this, even though I imagine it is impossibly difficult to actually execute.
The Tokyo team are absolute masters, and I really want to talk to developers specifically, just to get nerdy about like camera in this game. It's never really been a hang up for me. The idea of doing so many complicated different things in one game and having the camera, you can control it, but even if you don't, it still works with you so much of the time.
For the most part, you don't have to think about it, which is nice.
It's crazy that you don't have to think about it more, that it's not frustrating.
Ukulele came out earlier this year, right?
Yeah.
I remember messing around with the camera a bit in that. That felt a little bit rougher, and that was kind of in that like old. We mentioned Banjo-Kazooie a couple times, that old vein. And when that came out, I was like, you know what? I kind of want a like old school platformer style game. And I played that, and I'm like, maybe I don't want that anymore. Maybe I don't. And then here comes Nintendo. It's like, here's this old school-ish Mario platforming type game, but like with new systems in it, and it's like refined. And it's just like, I still do like platformers. I still do like those 3D platformers.
Yeah.
I think
so
a lot of
refreshing to have.
I think a lot of the stuff with the camera has to do with the fact that there are very few tight spaces in that game, where because every area is this open like diorama kind of thing. It feels like you're often in areas where you are not surrounded by walls, and the few times they do sort of have these intricate platforming levels are often in a fixed perspective.
You're totally right.
Of like
good point.
It's either in 2D or you're in. Or
it just
or
locks
it is
the camera
it just locks the camera in these very tight spaces. So I think they've just designed around their camera a lot better than they have in like Sunshine, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey guys, thanks for talking about Super Mario Odyssey. I'd love to do it some more throughout the year. I hope everyone else enjoyed it and is enjoying the game and all that stuff. And that's it for the episode of the Game Informer Show. Be sure to tune into Extra Life, happening this Saturday. What is it, November 3rd?
4th?
4th. That's it. So Saturday starting at 8 a.m. Central. We're going for 25 hours. It's going to be a hell of a time. We're auctioning off some amazing, amazing items. So definitely check out Game Informer's Twitch channel or our YouTube channel. We'll be going live and hopefully going strong, and I'll still have voices. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's it for this episode of the Game Informer Show. Be sure to tune in next Thursday for another new episode. Bye, everybody.
You